All right. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Sadia Sherman, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the New York City Department of Planning. Welcome to today's meeting. Between the votes and public meetings on today's agenda, we'll examine projects across all 5 boroughs, starting with a vote on 200 Kent Avenue in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. This conversion and expansion of an existing building would facilitate around 140 new homes, between 30 and 40 of them income-restricted affordable, at a site within walking distance from Domino Park, the New York City Ferry, and the L train at Bedford Avenue. In Manhattan, we'll vote on a proposal to allow the Department of Transportation to contract with the Flatiron Nomad Bid Partnership for revenue-generating concessions along Broadway from East 19th Street to West 31st Street in Manhattan. These funds would be dedicated to maintaining public space throughout the Flatiron District. The Commission will also vote on a proposal for 290 Henry Street on the Lower East Side. The landmark, St. Augustine's Church, is asking for bulk modifications to construct a mixed-use building behind the church with 130 income-restricted affordable homes. In addition to helping address the city's housing shortage, the project would generate funds for ongoing restoration work on the landmark church. The site is located near the F train at East Broadway and New York City Ferry Landing and several public open spaces. We'll next vote on Walk to a Park site selection in Queens Community District 2, which includes the neighborhoods of Long Island City, Sunnyside, Woodside, Blissville, and West Maspeth. This application by the New York City Parks Department and DCAS would enable the selection and acquisition of privately owned properties in this area for future park development. It's part of an ongoing city initiative to help ensure more New Yorkers live near public parks and close to the so-called Walk to a Park, and close the so-called Walk to a Park gap. Also in Queens, we'll vote on a proposed mixed-use building at 4703 108th Street in Corona. This development would include nearly 120 new homes, 30 of them income-restricted affordable, along with ground floor retail and a public indoor soccer field. The site is close to the Q23 bus and Flushing Meadows Corona Park. Notably, this project is using Green Fast Track, which provides a more streamlined environmental review for small and medium-sized climate-friendly housing development. Next, the Commission will vote on a proposal by the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services to consolidate Staten Island's family courts operation through a renovation and construction project. The 100 Richmond Terrace and 55 Stuyvesant Place would undergo major renovations, while 10 Hamilton Avenue would become the site of a new 8-story court building. Together, these improvements would create a centralized hub for judges, lawyers, and members of the public who rely on family court services. A notable step up from today's arrangement, which faces space constraints, security challenges, and operational inefficiencies. We will also vote in an application by the New York City Parks Department and DCAS to purchase a lot at 346 Meredith Avenue in Bloomfield, Staten Island, to serve as Parks Fleet Maintenance Facility. Finally, we'll vote on 4 applications with a mix of authorizations and certifications in Staten Island Community District 1. Tompkins Circle and Wards Hill would facilitate two new two-family homes. At 225 Howard Avenue in Grimes Hill, this would be the site of a single-family home with a pool and basketball court. 314 Lafayette Avenue in New Brighton would be home to the new Goodhue Center, a community anchor with after-school programs, summer camps, sports and recreational activities, and family counseling services. And St. Peter's Boys High School in New Brighton would be able to construct a new athletic field on its campus. Switching to public hearings, we'll begin with testimony on a proposal to continue using 1688 Victory Boulevard on Staten Island for the FDNY's Bureau of Health Services World Trade Center unit. This unit, which includes 24 city employees, provides critical health care services to FDNY 9/11 responders. The public is also invited to testify on a rezoning to facilitate 2 new buildings with nearly 460 income-restricted affordable homes in Crotona within the Bronx. Phase 1 of this proposal, known as Sojourner Truth, is located at 2136 Crotona Parkway and would include 159 homes. Phase 2, known as Mapes Court, is located at East 182nd Street and Mapes Avenue and would include 298 homes. Both sites are a couple of blocks away from the Bronx Zoo. Our next hearing is on a mixed-use project at 132 Melrose Street in Bushwick, Brooklyn, with around 20 homes, a quarter of them income-restricted affordable and ground floor retail. The building would include a green roof and be near the Green Central Knoll Playground, Beaver Knoll Playground, and the J, M, and Z trains at Myrtle Avenue. Moving to Bay Ridge, the commission will open the floor to testimony in the Fort Hamilton Muse rezoning, which would facilitate a mixed-use building with around 300 new homes, nearly 90 of them income-restricted affordable, as well as ground floor retail and community facility space. Located at 9305 Fifth Avenue, the project would be near the Fort Hamilton Triangle, the B8 and B63 buses, and the R train at Bay Ridge, 95th Street. Finally, we'll hear public testimony on a multi-site rezoning along Park Avenue in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. Located between Spencer Street and Warsaw Place, these 5 buildings would contain a mix of apartments and educational facilities. In total, there would be nearly 400 homes, 100 of them income-restricted affordable, along with 4 private schools serving students from kindergarten to high school. The sites are close to the B44, B54, B57 buses, and the G train at Flushing Avenue and Myrtle and Willoughby Avenues. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Madam Secretary, to get us started.
Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held remotely and in person in the CPC hearing room at 120 Broadway, Lower Concourse. Today is Wednesday, July 1st, 2026, and I will now call the roll. Chair Sherman.
Present.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Benjamin. Present. Commissioner Cerullo.
Here.
Commissioner Crowell.
Present.
Commissioner Dweck.
Here.
Commissioner Gold is absent today. Commissioner Goodrich.
Here.
Commissioner Kermani.
Here.
Commissioner Mann.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Osorio.
Here.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Here.
A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the public meeting of Wednesday, June 17th, 2026.
On the minutes, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved.
Scheduling, calendar numbers 1 through 4, scheduling Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, for a public hearing to be held in person in the CPC hearing room, 120 Broadway, and remotely.
On the resolution, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution is adopted.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 6. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 5 and 6, 200 Kent Avenue rezoning. Community District 1, calendar number 5, C 260149ZMK. Calendar number 6, N 260150ZRK. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 200 Kent Avenue rezoning. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 5 and 6, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin. Aye. Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kermani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
I vote yes, and I wanted to thank so much to the Department of City Planning for facilitating the discussion with the applicant. I also just want to recommend to memorialize yesterday's commitment from the applicant to attract and hopefully secure industrial tenants in order to honor the historic goal to maintain industrial uses in the mix for this block. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 5 and 6. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 7, Flatiron Nomad Major Concessions, Community District 5, C 260123MCM, in the matter of an application for a major concession concerning Flatiron Nomad Major Concessions. For a favorable report on calendar number 7, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
I vote yes, and again, I wanted to thank so much the Department of City Planning for facilitating the discussion with the Department of Transportation on pedestrian safety issues, but also for the additional language that was included in the report in order to make sure that as we bond efforts to strengthen the commercial vibrancy of the corridor while strengthening provisions to reduce injuries and monitor the impact of these measures going forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 7. Calendar number 8, St. Augustine's Preservation and Redevelopment Community District 3, C250336ZSM, in the matter of an application for a special permit concerning St. Augustine's Preservation and Redevelopment. For a favorable report on calendar number 8, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold. Absent, sorry. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 8. Borough of Queens, calendar number 9, Queens CD2 Walk to Park Site Selection and Acquisition, CD2 C260089PCQ, in the matter of an application for a site selection and acquisition concerning Queens CD2 Walk to Park Site Selection and Acquisition. For a favorable report on calendar number 9, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
I'm going to be voting yes, but it is with the expectation that, as they stated, the Department of Parks and Recreation will be looking at the tools that they're using to evaluate the open space that is available to the public and the efficacy of that open space to serve as an amenity for the neighborhood, and will be getting back to us with some modifications in that policy. Particularly, and the report does say this, they'll be looking at open space that is attached to institutions that is, by and large, available to the public. But I would also continue to recommend that when there are other opportunities, such as NYCHA developments, Mitchell-Lama developments, other large-scale developments that have public open space for the residents, but that is not restricted, that we should be including them in the open space inventory on which we're basing which neighborhoods are the most in demand. I'd like to thank the department also because they have looked at the issue and have responded appropriately, I think, to making sure that the first level of sites are considered before they move on to the second level, which could be occupied. With that, I vote aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Abstain.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
As someone who has voted no on larger rezonings due to direct and indirect reductions in open space, I know that any step to increase open space in New York City is necessary. So I vote yes, but I want to associate myself with the recommendations made by Commissioner Benjamin. In addition to that, I just want to say the following. I continue to raise concerns about the methodology used here to identify available land alone without a qualitative analysis of the types of open spaces needed according to existing conditions, the community needs and their priorities, and the proposed growth stemming from previous rezonings. So in wrapping up, I just want to encourage the Department of City Planning to engage the CPC to explore opportunities to embed this exercise as part of neighborhood planning frameworks so we can activate this mechanism to increase open space as part of a holistic planning exercise to mitigate any future reductions in open space, potentially resulting from rezonings and beyond. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 9. Calendar numbers 10 and 11, 4703 108th Street rezoning, Community District 4. Calendar number 10, N260147ZMQ, calendar number 11, N260148ZRQ, in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 4703 108th Street rezoning. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 10 and 11, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Once again, I'm voting yes, but I would like to echo the community board's concerns that this development only has studio and one-bedroom apartments in a neighborhood that has traditionally had families, and I would still think the developer may want to take a look at that unit mix with an eye towards including some larger apartments. I vote aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 10 and 11. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 12, Staten Island Family Court Consolidation. Community District 1, C 260227 PSR, in the matter of an application for a site selection concerning Staten Island Family Court Consolidation. For a favorable report on calendar number 12, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
So just for a moment, in voting yes for this, understanding and supporting the goal of the functionality and condition and operations of the Staten Island Family Court system, I do want to just remind the Commission and also implore the applicant in this to continue to work closely with the community on the coordination of this project with all the others that are neighboring that we've seen over the past couple of months, particularly with respect to the construction itself, but also the long-term implications of parking and people's access to the court system on a daily basis. So with that, I vote yes, with the hope that those conversations continue.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 12. Calendar number 13, 336 Meredith Avenue Fleet Maintenance Facility, Community District 2, C 260248 PCR, in the matter of an application for a site selection and acquisition concerning 336 Meredith Avenue Fleet Maintenance Facility. For a favorable report on calendar number 13, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yeah, in voting yes, this is just another one where to remind the applicant, the Parks Department here, and DCAS to really set up regular communications with the community on this with respect to noise control from the activities that will be going on with the trucks coming in and out of this location, and just to keep the sort of traffic mitigation controls at the forefront of how this will all operate. But with that said, I vote yes.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 13. Calendar numbers 14, 15, 16, and 17, Tompkins Circle, Block 569, Lot 360 to 363, Community District 1. Calendar number 14, N260291ZAR. Calendar number 15, N260292ZAR. Calendar number 16, N260293ZAR. Calendar number 17, N260294ZCR, in the matter of applications for the grant of authorizations and a certification concerning Tompkins Circle, Block 569, Lots 360 to 363. For the adoption of calendar numbers 14, 15, 16, and 17, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo. Yes. Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann. Yes. Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 14, 15, 16, and 17 have been adopted. Calendar numbers 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 for 225 Howard Avenue, Community District 1. Calendar number 18N260221 ZAR. Calendar number 19N260222 ZAR. Calendar number 20N260223 ZAR. Calendar number 21N260224 ZAR. Calendar number 22 N260225 ZAR. Calendar number 23 N260220 ZCR in the matter of applications for the grant of authorizations and the certification concerning 225 Howard Avenue or the adoption of calendar numbers 18 through 23. Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 18 through 23 have been adopted. Calendar numbers, I'm sorry, for Tompkins Circle, calendar numbers I did that one, I'm sorry. Apologies. Calendar numbers 24 and 25, New Good Hughes Center, 315 Lafayette Avenue, Community District 1. Calendar number 24, N260058 ZAR. Calendar number 25, N260059 ZAR. In the matter of applications for the grant of authorizations concerning New Good Hughes Center, 314 Lafayette Avenue. For the adoption of calendar numbers 24 and 25, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 24 and 25 have been adopted. Calendar numbers 26 and 27, St. Peter's Boys High School Athletic Field, Community District 1. Calendar number 26, N260318 ZAR. Calendar numbers 27, N260319 ZAR. In the matter of applications for the grant of authorizations concerning St. Peter's Boys High School Athletic Field for the adoption of calendar numbers 26 and 27, Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Gold is absent. Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 26 and 27 have been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 10. The first public hearing, Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 28, FDNY, continued use of World Trade Center Unit 1688 Victory Boulevard, Community District 1, C260330 PQR, public hearing in the matter of applications for an acquisition concerning FDNY continued use of World Trade Center Unit 1688 Victory Boulevard. There will be a 3-minute presentation by the applicant remotely. One moment while we get the presentation up. And we have Stephanie Williams, Jeremy Brooks, Juliana Becker, and Alex Trasowski on Zoom. Stephanie or Jeremy, you may unmute.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, good morning.
Let me know when you're ready to, yep, go ahead.
We're ready. Good morning, Commissioners and Chair, and thank you for your time. My name is Stephanie Williams, Director of Administration for FDNY Support Services. The Fire Department and the Department of Citywide Administrative Service is seeking ULIP acquisition approval for a privately owned property at 1688 Victoria Boulevard. The Fire Department has operated its World Trade Center health program at this location since 2002. The purpose is for FDNY and DCAS to enter into a new lease in order to provide critical healthcare services at this location. Next slide. As I mentioned, the property is 1688 Victoria Boulevard, Block 708, Lot 7501 in Staten Island Community District 1. The FDNY already occupies and operates this facility. This request is simply to allow continued operation, no expansion, no redevelopment, or new construction. Next slide. The WTC Healthcare Program is a federally funded program through NIOSH, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. It provides medical monitoring, treatment, and mental health services. This program serves approximately 10,000 active and retired FDNY members affected by the World Trade Center exposure across its 3 regions, Staten Island, Comac, and Middletown. The Staten Island location serves not only Staten Island, but southern Brooklyn and parts of Jersey as well. Next slide. This facility is approximately 8,550 square feet, located on the first and part of the second floor. The building is approximately 26,388 square feet. It's open from Monday through Friday from the hours of 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's staffed by 24 medical healthcare professionals. It serves on an average of 25 patients daily. These services include medical monitoring, diagnostic treatment, mental health counseling, case management, pharmacy support, and care coordination. Next slide. This is more pictures of the facilities. Next slide. The facility is in Staten Island Community District 1, located in the Castleton neighborhood, zoned R2 C1-1. It's primarily a residential neighborhood with some commercial overlays on Victory Boulevard. This action does not change the building or the surrounding community. Next slide. I want to reiterate, there's no expansion, no increase in occupancy, no operational changes, and no physical changes. Next slide. If there's one takeaway from today's presentation is that this action does not change how the facility operates. It simply allows the FDNY and DCAS to enter into a new lease in order to continue providing essential healthcare services to members who rely on them. There's no impact on traffic, parking, infrastructure, or neighborhood characteristics. I thank you, Commissioner Chair, and we invite any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there questions? Commissioner Cerullo?
Yes, thank you. Just one simple one. This location's been operating now for 15, 16 years, and I realize there's no planning for construction or any sort of capital improvements.
That's correct.
Which is not an issue at all. But is there any plan, I don't know what the condition of it is there any plan to just clean it up a little, like paint? Is that separate? I mean, it's been operating a really long time there. It serves a huge number of people. And I just wonder if there's any plans to just do sort of a basic cleanup in the space as this lease now transfers to the city.
Well, with the lease negotiations, we will negotiate that option within the terms.
Okay, good. I hope you do. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We'd like to invite any members of the public who may want to testify on this item. Okay, hearing no interest there, no one here to testify, this hearing is now closed. Thank you.
The second hearing for today, Borough of the Bronx, calendar numbers 29 and 30, Sojourner Truth, Mapes rezoning. Community District 6, calendar number 29, C240206ZMX, calendar number 30, N240207ZRX, public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning Sojourner Truth, Mapes rezoning. There will be a 10-minute team presentation by the applicant in person with some on remote. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Chair Sherman, Vice
Good morning.
Chair Knuckles, and Commissioners. My name is Matthew Washington, Vice President and Chief of Staff of Phipps Houses. I'm very excited to be here. Oh, sorry. Is that better? Oh, that's much better.
Yes.
I'll start again. Good morning, Chair Sherman, Vice Chair Knuckles, and Commissioners. My name is Matthew Washington. I'm Vice President and Chief of Staff at Phipps Houses. I'm very excited to be here because the Knicks are champions and we're talking about affordable housing today. I'd like to introduce who we are. Excited to talk about this project, this Sojourner Mapes rezoning. Sojourner, just so you all know in case you didn't know, Sojourner Truth House was a shelter that was run that's no longer there, so that's a vacant lot that we'll be talking about where we're building a project. But we're excited for this project because it gives us the opportunity to give existing tenants of Phipps new homes in a building that was first constructed in 1924, and it gives us the opportunity to bring new affordable housing to this section of the Bronx, which we're excited about. I'd like to introduce the members of my team who are here and then go into a little bit more detail about Phipps. So I'm joined by my colleagues at Phipps, Hugh Ward, who's Senior Project Manager, and we are also joined by Astrid Walker-Stewart, who will be going through more details of the presentation. We're also joined by our architect, Magnus Westergren, Associate at Marvel Architects, and our environmental consultant, Patrick Blanchfield, who's Senior Vice President at AKRF. So a little bit about Phipps and who we are. Founded in 1905, we have been providing affordable housing in New York City for over 120 years, which we're very excited about. Today we have close to 10,000 apartments, but I like to think about it serving over 10,000 families with housing throughout the city. And in this West Farms neighborhood that we're talking about today in particular, in 1972, we founded what is now called Phipps Neighborhoods, because we acknowledge that having a roof over your head is important, but services beyond that roof are critical for families to thrive. And so we have been serving families, about 15,000 individuals, through programs, education, workforce, even drone building and flying for middle school children. And so a lot of great programs for the communities. And in particular, we've been serving this West Farms Crotona community for over 50 years. And so we're very proud of the work. As you all are all aware, the community board reviewed this and gave an unfavorable vote on this, and you may have learned that the borough president gave a favorable position with some conditions. So I imagine you'll have some questions about those, which we look forward to getting into. But now I'd like to pass the microphone over to my colleague, Astrid Walker-Stewart, our Director of Planning and Real Estate Development, who will go through the details of the project.
Thanks, Matthew. Good morning, Chair Sherman and Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Astrid Walker-Stewart, as Matthew mentioned, and I'm here to present a proposal for a 100% affordable housing development and mixed-use development located in the Bronx in Council District 15, Community Board 6, in the Crotona West Farms neighborhood. So the proposed project spans two sites along East 181st Street and East 182nd Street, with Southern Boulevard and Crotona Parkway running through both sites. The application includes two zoning map amendments. First, we're proposing to rezone the existing Sojourner site from an R7-1 to R8 to facilitate the first phase of the project. And then second, we're proposing to rezone the Mapes Court site, which is phase 2, which is the portion bounded by East 182nd to the north, Southern Boulevard to the east, and Mapes Avenue to the west. The site contains a vacant gas station, a one-story commercial space, and Mapes Court, which is an existing building with 91 tenants who would be relocated to the Sojourner site upon completion, and I will speak more on the relocation process later on in the presentation. The rezoning area, mapped with DCP's guidance, also includes the lots to the south of the Mapes redevelopment site. The rezoning would change the existing mixed-use corridor from an R71, C14 to R8, C24, reflecting the commercial character along that boulevard. In addition to the map changes, we're proposing to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area to introduce permanently affordable housing development if those portions of, or if those lots were to be redeveloped. Now we have our land use map. This project sits within a predominantly residential mid-rise neighborhood with building ranging in height from 2 to 8 stories with 14-story buildings, and we have one 30-story tower to the south. These sites are also serviced by several bus routes and, of course, accessible by the subway lines, the 2 and the 5 at the West Farms and East Tremont Avenue station. So now going into the sites, the Sojourner site, as Matthew mentioned, is a currently vacant site and was the location of a formerly homeless shelter and occupies an entire block on a wide street. So we're really excited about the opportunity to beautify this lot and introduce homes to this space. So this is what the Sojourner building is proposed to look like. We're proposing to create 159 affordable housing units, with over 50% of the units would be reserved for existing tenants in the Mapes Court building. FIPS will cover all moving costs, provide moving services, have a team dedicated to supporting tenants moving. We will host informative tenant meetings, which we've already done a few weeks ago. It was very well attended. And any additional services required to ensure tenants are supported. A key piece of this is that tenants will retain their existing rent, and this will be memorialized in a regulatory agreement. So the building itself, it will range from 8 to 16 stories and will have a slew of amenities, a laundry room, fitness room, playroom, and community space. And this building will also have an elevator, and that is notable as the existing Mapes building does not have one. There will also be concierge at the lobby. So the intent is to create a welcoming, warm environment and also to add an additional layer of safety for that block. And this will be financed through HBD, HDC bonds, and LIHTC. So this perspective is from 181st Street, and it highlights what we call the maisonettes, which are on the ground floor in gray. And these are essentially row houses inset into a larger building. And we've done this in other FIPS building, and we found it's been a very successful way to activate the street, add an additional layer of safety, and create a human scale to a larger building. And also, as you can see, there's a landscaped open space in the rear yard that will be secured for tenants. And this is the proposed massing from a different angle. And the point of this is to demonstrate that the height responds to the corners and location at which it's distributed. So we've concentrated the height along the wide street of Crotona Parkway, steps down to 8 stories, and then also steps down to 10 and 8 when the building is closer into the residential neighborhood. This is the first floor plan. The amenities are concentrated around the lobby, so it's a one-stop shop. We have a package room, and then in blue, you can see those are the duplexes with their own, the maisonettes, which are duplexes, which have their own door. And, you know, the first floor plan reflects how the architects thought about how tenants would use a space, because the laundry room is located directly beside the playroom, so when parents are doing their laundry, their kids can play. And this is the second floor plan. You can see in blue the second story of the maisonettes, and then a distribution of 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 1. So this is the preliminary numbers for affordability and unit distribution, as the city will, of course, provide input. The affordability levels are subject to change based on the existing tenant's income, as tenants will, as I mentioned, retain their existing rent, and right now they're based on the numbers that we have, their AMI ranges range from 20 to 30% AMI. And then our intent with the unit distribution is to build a lot of housing for families. As you can see, we're creating over 60% of family-sized units, and this is notable because the city requires 30% of 30% of buildings have 2 bedrooms or more. And so we've doubled the city's requirement because we know this is important, and the borough president has also shared that belief. So for the second phase of the project, the Mapes Court building, the existing site, as discussed, includes the Phipps building, a vacated gas station, and the 1-story commercial space along East 182nd. We own these sites. Before I walk through this build.
You'll have an opportunity to elaborate, too, as we get to questions
on
Mapes Court. I know we have a few questions. I'll just start off, and then I'll pass on to our fellow commissioners. So you mentioned the existing tenants who would be moving into the new site will keep their same rents. Are their rents subsidized through Section 8, or how are their rents structured currently?
They're not. They're rent-stabilized leases, and so upon relocation, they would maintain the same rent with the new rent-stabilized lease.
Okay, and I know that in the community board, referral, as well as in the referral that we got from the BP, they brought up the concerns around Lambert and that experience. So can you just give us a sense of where that is and just how you're sort of carrying any lessons learned over into this transition?
Sure, absolutely. Unfortunately, the community board didn't ask us questions, and we would have been happy to talk with them. At Lambert, we've actually done 3 locations already. And so we have a lot of experience with relocations. The initial relocation from the first phase of Lambert, we had an existing building with 35 households. So we had to relocate those families into the existing portfolio to demolish that and use that as a relocation resource. And then those tenants were moved into that building, plus the tenants from another building into that building, so that we can continue the process and completion of the second phase, where about a year ago we finished the relocation of tenants. The relocation process has actually worked very well. We have hired movers, and tenants have the opportunity to talk with the movers to coordinate their move if they need support packing and other sorts of things. We've even worked with tenants afterwards. Some, after their moving date, realized they left things in their old apartment, and even though they turned in their keys, we gave them access so that they can continue to retrieve items. And so the relocation process worked very well. And I can tell you that personally, I gave tenants tours of the most recent building before they moved in. And so we're talking about evenings and Saturdays where I went out and gave 250 residents tours of the new building before they moved in. That's prior to them identifying a specific apartment, where most tenants have the opportunity to look at 2 or 3 units and select one that they liked and would like to move into. There are issues with recertification, but actually the relocation process has been fairly smooth over the 3 times that we've done it already. And of course, we've learned how to do it. We've learned got to hire the right movers so that we can do that and make sure that we work collaboratively with the tenants to get into the new building, as well as show it to them, right? They get to they've watched their new home be built, and so take the time to bring tenants into the building so that they see it and really feel a part of it. So we feel very good about that process. And with the current Mapes Courts tenants, similarly, we're talking with them about this already, answering their questions and working with them collaboratively and letting them know that we're here to support them and to help them and answer all their questions.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Moran and Commissioner Goodrich.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Washington, thank you. Thank you to the team for your presentation. So I just want to follow up on a question that the Chair asked in reference to what the tenants will be paying. You did say that rent stabilized, they'll be paying the same they're paying now. what if a unit is more expensive? What happens to that tenant if they're not a recipient of a voucher or some sort of subsidy?
Yeah, our commitment is that they will pay the same rent. And so let's just say their current rent at their apartment is, $1,000, and the new apartment, that rent might go for $1,200. They will still get a lease at $1,000, even if it's a preferential rent. But, we're relocating tenants, and putting an extra burden on them wouldn't be right. And so whatever their rent is at the time of relocation would be the new rent in the new building.
Understood. And, thank you for your acknowledging that there were some concerns, and some of those have been addressed at the Borough President's report. The Borough President specifically talks about the fact that you've hired a new property manager with recertification experience. Yeah. Had that not been the case, had the old manager not understood recertifications, what was the bottleneck there that made tenants uncomfortable?
So there are a host of things. I mean, the Borough President outlined that we hired a new senior property manager. We also hired a new area manager who oversees a large portfolio for us, about 2,500 units in total. And so, what we look at, right, we are not perfect. And so nobody is, but we acknowledge if we need to make correction, we need to. And so we needed to change staff. We did have staff who had some experience, but not everybody works out in every position. And so I think a lot of it was making sure that we have the right fit, people who are organized and staying on top of paperwork. But with recertifications, it's a real partnership, and ultimately making sure that tenants and management are working collaboratively. Some of the issues were just personality issues. And so if, a management staff member has an issue with the tenant and the tenant has an issue with management, they don't talk to each other. And so we need to make sure we have the right staff who are going to engage on a regular basis with everyone. And so not for lack of skill, but sometimes and oftentimes it's the personality conflicts that really got in the way of things. But having the right team in place makes a big difference. And so in terms of the two new, because the Borough President didn't mention the new area manager, but the two new staff members replacement, she mentioned the senior property manager. We also added additional staff to make sure that we're addressing the needs of the residents. Sometimes we have issues with, if a tenant hasn't paid rent, we want to work with them through our social service program, find out if they do need to apply for a one-shot deal or something else. But we actually encourage and tell our management team to work with tenants and find out what the issues are and how we can address them, which is critically important. I did forget to mention, we're also joined by Kelly Viscuso, Vice President of Development, who's on virtually.
Okay. Was it a capacity issue for you at this time that you've taken on more units? I mean, I'm not understanding how, if you have this type of portfolio, this kind of issue would have come up. And I will say that, yes, it is, personalities are difficult. Being a landlord, I understand that. And so you have to find a way of rising above that. So you can't, it's not a situation where you can continue to change staff if the tenants continue to be difficult. I think there needs to be a way of managing that. And that's something you'll need to, and we'll see as you move along.
Sure.
But it seems that, to me, from what I'm hearing here is either there was lack of that capacity or capacity needed to be augmented. So I just want to make sure, look, at the end of the day, having grown up and being raised in the Bronx, having seen Lambert rise, West Farms as we knew it, and now seeing it torn down and something new coming in its place, the community has been uplifted. The grounds around Lambert are much better and more organized. You don't see those black tar parking lots that are unused and cracked parking lots and chain link fences. So I will say that it does look better. I do also understand, because there have been questions about why raise the Mapes Avenue building, but I do understand that deficiencies may not be there, and to renovate and retrofit those buildings may be more costly than putting up a new building. The one thing that I will say is that it's nice to see you have the masonettes. It would be a good transition to have that be smooth so that the tenants feel comfortable, and then, the word of mouth starts to spread in a different way. There's two other things. One is that the borough president mentioned a building on 2080 Boston Road that we have no knowledge of, providing weekly lobby hours for residents. Is that so they can access social services?
So it's a host of things. So 2080 Boston Road is the second redevelopment asset for Lambert Houses. And so in that building, around the corner on 180th Street, we have the management office. But one of the things that we wanted to do, management office is closed at 5. One of the things we wanted to do was make our teams available to tenants in the lobby as they're coming home. And it's the lobby that we have. And so sometimes we will have porters in there. We will have social service teams in there. We'll have the property manager in there. But just so that tenants have access to the people who are managing their building. And it's been quite successful. And so it's not just restricted to the tenants of that building. All of Lambert Houses, you can see the flyers around where, you come home after work, and you may have something that you need to address. And so it's really just an extra layer to connect with the tenants and make sure that they have an opportunity to speak with someone in person. They can submit a work order 24/7, 365. But sometimes talking with somebody face-to-face feels better, and someone is listening to you. And so it's a program that we just launched, which we are going to keep doing because of the success of it. And it makes tenants feel like we're listening and we care, which we do.
Thank you. And then my last question is about the community garden that's cited in her report that DEIS also states there will be some shadows. Are you working with that community group? Do you intend on, it is a community asset that your tenants will eventually, I guess, be members or participants of or recipients of?
Sure. Yeah, I hope our tenants grow some vegetables and I can take some home and eat them. So, absolutely. We have not talked with the gardeners directly, but during environmental review through this process, we have been in contact with the Parks Department about the Hornaday Community Garden and shadows. And so we're working with the Parks Department to fund a redesign of that garden. But we absolutely intend on having conversations with the gardeners and would love to talk with our tenants about potentially becoming members of the garden to participate as well. But we look forward to having conversations with the gardeners, but have been in touch with Green Thumb and the Parks Department about their needs for a redesign of the garden. I
appreciate that. And I got to tell you, as a tenant, I wouldn't know if I want the top floor or the Maisonettes, because the top floor I can see the Bronx Zoo, the Maisonettes I have a duplex. So it's going to be challenging for you. Thank you, Mr. Washington. I appreciate it.
I would welcome that challenge from our tenants, but if they're happy about it, then we're in good shape. Yep.
Commissioner Goodrich, and just also a note to the public, if people are interested in speaking on this item, now is your time to register.
So I also have some follow-up questions. So I guess my first one is following up on some questions from Commissioner Marin. The concern about the issue from 10 years ago and the tenants having recertification issues, it seems like even with new management, it still is not corrected. The community board is saying that even in 2024, those same tenants came to them and were complaining about the same issue stemming from 2016 that hadn't been handled. So what do you have to say about that?
I can't talk to a specific, I'd have to look at something specifically from 2016 to 2024. I don't know the details of that.
Word letter regarding this specific rezoning, so.
Sure. Well, you're talking about the 2016 rezoning of Lambert?
Yes, they cited in their community board letter that went to regarding this project.
So I'm not sure what issues from 2016 arose there. There was a different staff and a different district manager. The community board supported the Lambert Houses rezoning in 2016, and even John Sanchez, who was district manager at the time, attended city council hearings to express support for it. So I'd have to look at issues from back then. In terms of recertification, the reality is the vast majority of tenants who are Section 8 tenants recertify on time, and there's no lapses in that recertification. There are issues that come up. There have been issues where tenants haven't gotten their paperwork in on time, which causes delay. There have been times where our own staff has made an error and hasn't submitted something properly.
Just to clarify, they're talking about tenant transfers. They're talking about issues regarding the specific management. And even as last year, there's been a lawsuit filed that involves Phipps Houses regarding the same issue, right, by NILAG.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm pointing out and what I'd like answers on is you know, it's one thing if this happened 10 years ago and then there's new management and things are better, but they're saying that tenants are still coming as early as a couple of years to 2024, and then there's been a new lawsuit filed, and it's the same exact issue. So it seems like the issues actually have not been resolved regarding, you know, tenant transfers, how tenants are being able to move from one apartment to the other, transparency, recertification.
Sure.
And that's the reason why they have rejected what really, I looked at the proposal and thought, this is amazing. We almost never get this type of proposal, but they just don't have a lot of faith in, you know, the project because of the institutional memory of dealing with it. And so for me, after looking through it, I agree with them, and I'd like some answers.
Well, I'm not sure what you're agreeing with in totality. I mean, the community board, look, in property management, we have lots of properties, and specifically at Lambert Houses, we have lots of tenants. Most of the tenants are happy, and most of the tenants are fine, and there have been no issues. Have issues come up? Absolutely. And so we work to address those. You mentioned a new lawsuit. We've not received any new lawsuit. There was the NILAG case, which there's a settlement about that, and so we're working through that. Yeah, the NILAG case, right, which is settled. So they're, you know, with the tenants and with recertifications, which was the focus of, you know, their action. Again, we are currently working with tenants. There are tenants who've lapsed, and so we have a team that's working to get everybody reinstated 100%. Working with HUD for these, you know, we have to take action, right? It's a requirement of HUD, but we've done it. And look, you know, for every tenant who says that there is an issue, I can give you the number of 5 tenants who have no issues at all. And so there have What I'm saying is there certainly are tenants who have had issues, no question about that. But it is why we are spending time in the lobby, spending time working with tenants and addressing every issue. So. Sure. No, not at all. Sure. No, that's not it at all, Commissioner. As I talked about, we're doing lobby hours. That's a real action, talking with tenants. We have scheduled office hours for tenants to come in during the day, and they're meeting individually with every tenant, whoever wants to. The tenants created a tenant association. We attend all of those meetings and talk about issues. We just talked about a plan with them for addressing recertification issues, which is one-to-one. And really, you know, ultimately, it's one-to-one, right? We're talking about people's financial information. And so what are we doing? We've made ourselves more accessible to our tenants so that we can address every single issue. I mean, we are going, you know, tenant by tenant, family by family, working out every issue so that we can clear up any confusion, any misunderstanding. One of the things that is important is all of our staff in the office is bilingual English and Spanish, which is helpful in that area. And we have other language services. So what are the actions? The actions are working with every family, with every tenant, and providing more access to our staff to address any issue, any concern that they have. Those are real actions, Commissioner.
Sorry, one quick question. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on the regulatory agreement that you mentioned? Because I think, again, some of the issues that the community board has brought up is more so about no accountability. So how would the regulatory agreement that you mentioned earlier, is that, you know, if you decide to change your mind earlier, which they've mentioned, you know, how does that sort of enforce accountability?
So everything is regulated for our buildings. If we're talking about Lambert specifically...
Well, I'm talking about the one that you mentioned in the presentation. You said that there, did I get that right?
The proposed development.
The proposed development.
Okay.
Right. HPD. Ultimately, right, we are under a regulatory agreement with HPD, and so HPD is the governing body over that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So we have Commissioner Benjamin and Commissioner Osorio.
Good to see you.
I had a couple of questions about the existing MAPES building.
Sure.
Since you're planning to tear it down, what exactly are the issues within the building, and what would the rehab cost be?
Sure. So the second one, we haven't looked at the specific rehab costs. It would be very costly. This is a 5-story walk-up building with no elevator. One of the major concerns of this building is, you know, in New York City, we do have NORCs, naturally recurring retirement communities. However, there are a lot of people who age in their home no matter where they're at. The idea that tenants would age in their home living on the 5th floor of a walk-up building is one that is of a concern to us. And so being able to provide something that is ADA accessible for anyone who may be in a wheelchair or something else is critical. And so trying to, you know, it would be really wildly expensive to try to do that. We haven't looked at the numbers specifically. I know Magnus may have taken a look at some of this, but he can talk to it as well, and he's standing behind me.
So the elevator is the main issue with the current state of repair of the building. Is that correct?
I wouldn't necessarily say state of repair. I mean, the building is not, you know, a busted up, beat down building. The building is functioning. It just won't, you know, it won't serve our tenants in the long term. But to the question about cost prohibitive, Magnus wants to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say it's a 102-year-old building, so the construction system is, you know, steel-bearing walls and wood, and, you know, things sag over 100 years, so inserting anything into it becomes very, very costly, very complicated, and the disruption to tenants in doing any of that would be massive as well. And then furthermore, just environmentally, right, like these are uninsulated buildings, essentially. They have roof insulation, but there's no wall insulation, so thermally, they're not very good, right? You have very hot radiators that use, you know, very inefficient boilers. There's a lot of heat loss through the envelope. So in terms of meeting, you know, any kind of climate goals of the city, bringing this building up to speed, like environmentally, that as well would be, you know, an extremely costly thing to do.
But in terms of the tenant's experience, this is a building in relatively decent repair, would we say?
Yeah, and we still work on it. You know, we, you know, are right now finishing up renovations to the community room. You know, we're painting hallways and staircases, retiling floors, and so upkeep is important. But there's just certain limitations. You know, and a huge one is, you know, no elevator is a real big challenge.
Understood.
You know, one that no amount of patchwork can overcome.
Understood. I'm just trying to understand from a zoning perspective why these two discrete areas were put together and why this building is not considered for restoration, renovation, et cetera. That's the heart of that part of the question, is why we're tearing down a building that people are currently living in. And it would seem to me that the key reason is because, as you stated, because of the lack of ADA compliance and because the building cannot be brought to the city's goals for energy efficiency.
Correct.
so during this interim period, and the first question on this line is, when do you expect occupancy on the Sojourner Truth site?
We would love as soon as possible. I mean, going through the rezoning process.
What,
So and I don't say that jokingly, I say that seriously, you know, assuming we get the approval of the commission and it goes through the city council and we get approval and we're approved.
Right, because if you don't,
right,
you're not going to need
it doesn't happen, right? So
yeah,
with that assumption sort of set aside, you know, this is a project that will be financed with city resources. And so we'd have to get into the closing schedule with the city. And so can that happen in a year, 2 years, 3 years? Not exactly sure. We have to understand what the realities and access to funding availability is. Once we start construction at the Sojourner Truth site, it'll probably take about 24 months for construction. And then the relocation process would begin after that. So we're talking years, a few years from now. I would say 5 or longer.
What date are you using in your financing documents in terms of your construction start date?
We're looking at closing December 2027, which would mean the building wouldn't be finished until the end of 2029, and so relocation in 2030. But subject to change.
And during those 4 years, let's say, optimistically, the services that the tenants in the existing MAPES building will be able to expect are continued good maintenance. My concern is they're not going to feel that because this building is going to be torn down, that any significant maintenance will be deferred, because what's the point of, can you kind of assure us that maintenance will be maintained and the building will be maintained in a state of good repair?
Absolutely. And as I was just sharing very briefly, Commissioner Benjamin, right now we're renovating the community room so the tenants can use it, completely renovating that. We're changing the tile floors in the hallways. We're painting all the walls. And so making sure, you know, we want the tenants to be happy in it until they relocate. And so addressing issues, whatever issues come up, if there's a boiler issue, we're going to fix it. And so whatever the issues are, we will continue to address that and make sure we're investing in the project. We know that we intend on demolishing it, but that doesn't mean that the tenants don't deserve a good community room, which is why we're renovating it for them.
And I understand that there has been some concern that if things don't go as you expect, that tenants could be moved out to other locations before the Sojourner Truth is ready.
That's not true. I don't know who said that or where that came from, but there wouldn't be a two-move process for tenants. They would be relocated to the Sojourner Truth site after it's complete, but there wouldn't be a multiple move. We don't have a relocation resource for tenants, so we couldn't, we couldn't put them somewhere where we don't have.
And my last question is, you said the tenants will be able to move into the same apartments, even though the size of each room may be smaller. But is there going to be an attempt to right-size the apartments?
Potentially. It's something that we still have to sort out, working with the city and HPD. What we know we have to build are the units that are in the existing MAPES court, the 91 units. We have to rebuild those same unit sizes in the new project. There could be some right-sizing, which can go both ways, either smaller, but if you are underhoused, a larger unit. So we're still working out the specific details of those. Okay. And even in terms of the unit sizes, they're going to be pretty comparable, we think, in the end to what they live in today.
Could you give us the square footage of the 2- and 3-bedroom apartment configurations?
Yeah. That's for me, so let's go to Sojourner. For Sojourner. This is for the Sojourner building.
Those are the current sizes.
No, these
At
are the
Sojourner.
new.
These are the new?
Correct.
And the current sizes at Mapes?
We don't have it.
If you don't have the information on your fingertips, you can...
Yeah, I think to Matthew's point, they're fairly consistent. For the 2s and 3s, they're about 40 square feet difference, larger. But when we work, we obviously have to work within HPD's unit size regulations, and we always try to meet the higher threshold.
The reason that I asked that question in part is because you spoke about the possibilities that this was an unofficial NORC, or could be.
Every building in
So that if somebody currently has a 3-bedroom apartment, even though they're 70 years old and they live alone, the concern of whether they get a 3-bedroom apartment or whether we're right-sizing and they're going to go down to a 1-bedroom.
Sure.
To put it...
Of course. And in our conversations with tenants, they've asked the same question. Naturally, it makes sense. It's a reasonable, fair question. And we don't have the final answer. I have to work with HPD to understand how they do that. The rules, unlike Lambert, which are more clear through HUD, not as clear with HPD. So we're just we will find out and happy to share. And
will the 91 units count as, depending on what program you're using, as your community preference unit? Yeah. Or will there be a 20% community preference on top of that?
Go ahead. It's the preference.
Yes, but for Mapes, the 20% will apply because they're separate buildings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Okay. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for your presentation and thanks so much for, your willingness to address our questions. I appreciate how in your original opening you acknowledged the comments from the community board and to some extent from the borough president. And I just want to go back to a couple of things. I mean, I want to give you an opportunity to, share with us, your account of how the planning process has evolved, and what are you doing to regain trust from the committee? I read in the community board's comments how Phipps Houses had refused to hold a public meeting to explain the transfer process instead of, having individual meetings. And so I want to give you an opportunity to walk us a little bit through, the steps that you've taken to, number one, clarify and present the project to the community, but also, and perhaps most important, what you've done to address their concerns as part of the proposal.
Sure. I think the use of public meeting is an interesting one. Have we had a public meeting open to anyone off the street? No, because we're talking with our tenants. We have had meetings that were open to all tenants, for all tenants to talk about relocation and everything. And so we did have multiple meetings for tenants, but not open for the general public because we're talking about their relocation. And we've certainly shared, anytime we've talked with the community board, we've talked about relocation process, but ultimately communicating with our tenants and making tenant meetings available. If any tenant brings someone to the meeting with them, that's their choice. We won't deny anyone from the door, but we did not advertise public meetings. We only created meetings for our tenants.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I mean, it's just that, and I also just want to acknowledge what in your response to Commissioner Marin, how you laid out how you're addressing the capacity issues. I just want to give you an opportunity to respond more broadly to, the position that the community board has taken against the project to sort of like address any potential opportunities that you see to resolve some of those issues, which seem to be sort of like in to a great extent raising questions about the trust that the community has on the team.
Yeah, look, I think some of that you'll have to ask the community board. I mean, even during their public hearing, the community board didn't allow us to make a presentation during the public hearing. They didn't want us to. And so, the community board, has sort of determined a course, and we always say that we're welcome to have any conversation, any meeting that we can attend, we're happy to have those sort of discussions. And so, not allowing us to present our project at a public hearing, I found is odd and strange. Their choice ultimately, but we did fight to allow us to present to the community. There are community members during the public hearing who wanted to hear that. Additionally, the community board, days before we presented at their land use committee, the community board was asking us for money to fund a project that they were doing, which we replied, this seems inappropriate, and we don't want to be accused of any quid pro quo. And so we got that in email. And so the community board has done some things that are strange, and I'm someone who spent a lot of time on a community board, but we welcome any conversation and we welcome any question, and it's fair. So how are we doing that? We're increasing staffing at Lambert to make sure that the tenants, first and foremost, have access to the resources and the individuals that they need. And also, we will go to any meeting and talk about the issues. We'll never say that we haven't made errors. What we will do is say, if we do make an error, we will work aggressively to address the error that we have made, because that's important. I can tell you this was maybe in 2024, the community board organized a rally for Lambert tenants against Phipps management. There were probably 25 tenants who showed up of the 730 units at Lambert houses. And I attended the rally, and I talked with tenants myself to work on issues for 2.5 hours on the street corner just to address it. And so it doesn't matter what the venue is. If the tenants need an audience with management, we will make ourselves available. If there's any public meeting, we are happy to go there, and we don't mind taking questions on anything. And we can talk about the things that we have done well, the things that we haven't done well, but the action that we've taken to address it.
Thank you for your response and the clarification. I hope that your testimony today on the record can help maybe open another window for you to have this conversation, or for the conversation to continue with the community board. I think it'll be important to, continue working on that in order to, for the benefit of the project. I have another quick question in terms of the community board's recommendation. So, I actually am very interested in their position to prioritize new construction that can develop cooperative-owned housing or condos. And so just to sort of think a little bit about ways to maintain produce long-term wealth in the neighborhood. And so I was wondering if you can share a little bit, sort of how you've been reflecting that, or what's your process, what's your position on this?
Absolutely. Affordable home ownership is critical. We support it. We think it's great. Actually, in the building design for the Sojourner Truth site, it did not originally have the 9 masonette units at the base of the building. We redesigned it so that it could be a potential to accommodate affordable home ownership. The challenge with home ownership from a building perspective is our projects are built in large part with low-income housing tax credit financing. And so when you do home ownership, you lose that tax credit. And so losing the LIHTC is valued at about $250,000 per unit. And so when you look at closing the gap, where do you get the financing from? Is it from HBD? And then it reduces the overall number of units that they can build. Sometimes we have asked the city council or borough president to help close the gap, but it's hard to come by with other priorities that they have. And so we look to do that. We would love to do more home ownership. We think it's the right way to think. Really just the financial realities of it make it quite difficult, but something we're very supportive of and see the value in home ownership, and reflected in the design for Sojourner Truth. That's why we have the masonette units with that thought in mind of possibility. And even as we think about Mapes Court, some of the discussions have been, is it possible there? And so just trying to figure out what we can do to create affordable home ownership opportunities. So we're there with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, anything that you can submit in writing in your follow-ups to this conversation would be useful to both understand the work you've done to explore that, but also the constraints that you're highlighting, even in terms of the, HPD's open door program. It will be useful for us just to understand from your point of view, what are those constraints. Really quickly, Chair, if I may just ask one question that I'll combine. I I appreciate your response to Commissioner Marin in terms of the potential incremental shadows on the community garden. In looking at the incremental shadow diagrams that the community board references, things are not looking great. And so I heard you're just starting the conversation with Parks to try to identify potential mitigation options, but will you consider changing the envelope or the massing to actually address some of those shadows?
Look, I'll let Patrick and Magnus both want to talk to this a little bit. I mean, as I mentioned, we've not talked with the gardeners themselves. We have been in conversation with the Parks Department and Green Thumb through environmental review specifically about this issue, and we think we have satisfied their request. But I don't know, Patrick or Magnus, if you want to add something.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the Sojourner Truth site is pretty directly south of the garden, so it's there's going to be shadows from it. So city planning and the Parks Department came to the agreement, they think, by redesigning some of the planted areas. There's areas in the garden where they grow vegetables and flowers and different things. By redesigning some of those planted areas in the garden, they could still have a successful, a garden where they can grow these crops with the redesign that FIPS has agreed.
Well, thank you. I encourage you to continue looking into that, and if you can submit anything in writing in terms of how you plan to mitigate those impacts, that will be useful for us. And not to do it now, but to not take more time, but if you can in your follow-up, in your written follow-up, also help us understand the energy efficiency standards that you're proposing with the new buildings. I appreciated your response to Commissioner Benjamin's question in terms of the constraints to accomplish them with the existing MAPES building. But if you can help us understand what's the actual standard that you're aiming for, whether or not passive house is possible here, and specifically whether there could be any renewables produced on site, I would appreciate that. If you want to do it here, perfect. But if not, you can do it in writing later.
We can do it now.
Okay, thank you.
So we are going to follow passive house standards, Enterprise Green Community. We will abide by local laws 92 and 94 for green roof and solar. And the plan is for the building to be all electric. And just one more thing on the shadow piece. I believe one of the images of the shadows you probably have seen is on the day of the year that has the most shadow. And so it probably was in December, and that day has the least amount of sun, but that obviously changes throughout the year. And then in terms of our writing commitment, it is, again, memorialized in our restrictive declaration where we've, in writing, we're supporting the redesign of that garden.
Thanks again for all of your responses. And that final point, anything that you can share with us to see how you plan to implement those standards would be very useful. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Commissioner, just the finer point on support, it's not just we like redesign, we're paying for the redesign of the garden. And so to be very clear about how we're supporting that, and we'll work with the Parks Department to make sure that's addressed. And I appreciate your comments. And even with Community Board 6, we agree communication is great, and we would love to have more conversations with the board and address their issues on an ongoing basis.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak on this item? Okay, so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
And I see that we don't have any members of the public who have signed up to speak, so I'll just ask again if there's anyone here who's interested in speaking on this item. All right. If not, this hearing is closed.
Thank you, Chair. The third public hearing, Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 31 and 32, 132 Melrose Street rezoning, Community District 4, calendar numbers 31, C260135ZMK, calendar number 32, N260136ZRK, public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 132 Melrose Street rezoning. There'll be a 10-minute team presentation by the applicant in person.
Thank you so much. May I?
Yes.
you again. Good morning. Ron Mandel, my colleague Elena Green of Belkin, Burton Goldman, we're Land Use Counsel to the applicant. We're very excited to be here today representing two families that not only own the project site, 132 Melrose Street in Brooklyn, but are also active business leaders in the community for over 20 years, 17 of those years at the project site. The property subject to the proposed zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment involves 5 tax lots outlined in red on the screen, 3 of which are proposed to be developed. They're located on the south side of Melrose between Evergreen and Stanwix. The entire project area measures approximately 11,000 square feet, and the development site measures about 6,300 square feet. 2 of the tax lots not in the project area, but are in the rezoning area, are occupied by non-conforming residential multifamily buildings, which would be brought into compliance as a result of this proposed zoning map amendment. The project area is currently zoned M11. As noted on the area map, the M11 is a pocket tucked between an R6A, R7A directly to the north across Melrose. You may be familiar with this building. It's the Rheingold or Denizen building. An R6 to the south across Jefferson, and to the west across Bushwick, there's also an R6 zoning district. As noted on the image to the right, the proposal involves a zoning map amendment from M11 to an M11 to an M12A/R6A, an MX district. The project area is also benefited by its proximity to mass transit, including the JMZ trains, as well as public busing. This slide demonstrates the eclectic fabric of the immediate neighborhood. While warehouse-type buildings flank Evergreen, Stanwix, and Bushwick Avenue, there are a number of 2 to 5-story residential buildings. In addition, as residential development has grown over the last few years, with a tremendous push after that Denizen building across Melrose, several of the warehouse-type buildings have been converted to mixed-use commercial and residential buildings. In terms of site history and context, in 2019, I mentioned before the Denizen building, that building was constructed in 2019, directly across from the project site. It's a mixed-use commercial and residential development, measuring about 9 stories. Before then, and further exacerbated by the residential development, parking and loading has been increasingly difficult for the existing business at the site. They've been balancing struggles related to unloading trucks, trying to triple park along Melrose to unload goods, put goods on the trucks, and so on. We measured the street. It measures about 11 feet in width in the portion where cars can pass through. Programmatically, as you can imagine, it's not easy to run a warehousing fabrication business along the street, and as a result, these families relocated their business around the block and brought with them about 24 employees. Some images of the project area, which I thought were fascinating. In the 1940s, the lots were occupied by residential uses. Only 2 of those buildings still remain, those 2 non-conforming buildings. By the 80s, 3 of the lots were vacant, and 2 of them today still remain undeveloped. They serve as parking, as a parking area for the business. Some images to give you some further context. The image in the corner upper left is the site, again, the south side of Melrose. To the right is an image looking east towards Stanwix. Bottom left is an image showing a large 5-story office-type building along Evergreen, that's to the west. And another image of the project site on the bottom right, showing the 2 lots that are undeveloped that serve as parking, and right next door, the 2-story office building to be redeveloped.
As Ron stated, based on these difficulties with operating their existing manufacturing district, the applicant is proposing a rezoning from M11 to M12A R6A, a mixed-use special district. This is specifically in order to preserve the allowance for additional manufacturing uses and residential uses. So manufacturing uses will continue to be allowed in the site. Additionally, as Ron mentioned, lots 20 and 21 contain existing residential buildings, which are legally non-conforming, and this will bring them into conformance. In 2018, the Bushwick Community Plan was released in terms of rezoning, ideas for rezoning and zoning for the neighborhood for the future. In this plan, it specifically discussed that the M11 districts where manufacturing is being rezoned to commercial, it should also preserve manufacturing uses, which is why, in part, we've proposed the mixed-use district. In addition, there were concerns about preserving height on side streets, and we have aligned with that goal by going with a shorter 6-story building, which I'll get to later. Later, DCP released the 2019 Bushwick Neighborhood Plan, and as you can see on the map, our site was proposed to be zoned R6A with a manufacturing district with a 3.0 FAR. That is exactly what's being proposed here. And 1-2A manufacturing districts have a 3.0 FAR, and we're proposing an R6A district. It was contemplated originally to perhaps go with the higher density along Evergreen. You could see the R7A there, but due to community feedback and concerns about height and light and air on the street, R6A was determined to be the best contextual fit. So the development that this rezoning would facilitate will be 18 units with ground floor light manufacturing space. It will include 13 market rate units and 5 to 6 affordable units. The unit mix will consist of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. This was altered in response to community board concerns over having larger family-sized units. Originally, our proposal contained studios, and it no longer does. It's predominantly 2 bedrooms, and we added 3 bedrooms into the mix, which were originally proposed. Additionally, I want to point out that the building will be 6 stories, 65 feet. The district R6A would permit up to 9 stories, but we heard feedback that the side streets would be more fitting of a building in lesser height than 9 stories, as the Rheingold Dennison building is across the street. So we honored those concerns and also wanted to be respectful of the existing 3 to 4 story buildings adjacent. Finally, as noted in both the Borough President's and Community Board's recommendations, there is a strong desire to preserve manufacturing space on the ground floor here, and the applicant team is doing everything possible to make that happen. So far we've been speaking with Evergreen Exchange, the local industrial service provider, and they have also connected us with Greenpoint Manufacturing and Design Center to talk over exactly what would be needed to ensure that the space is equipped for a manufacturing use, including ceiling height, live load, power capacity, but also how to make sure that that use lives harmoniously with the residential tenants upstairs. So we're working with them on best practices because they've designed buildings recently in this nature. Evergreen also has indicated that they have tenants lined up that they believe would be suitable for this project. So once there's confirmation, we can move forward with finding an industrial tenant for the ground floor. And then finally, the building will include green energy features. It will have a green roof to absorb stormwater and urban heat. All appliances will be electrical. There will be energy efficient lighting and HVAC systems and low flow plumbing fixtures that don't compromise performance. Thank you very much, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I'll open up for questions.
Commissioner Sorio has his hand up.
Commissioner Sorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation and thanks so much for walking us through the different steps that you've taken to address both the community boards and the board president's emphasis on maintaining light industrial. I commend you for that. I had two quick questions. One question was whether you can more explicitly respond to the community board's recommendation, specifically as it relates to entering a legal binding agreement to prioritize and preserve manufacturing and to light industrial use on the ground floor. I was wondering if you can speak about that, but also kind of like the borough president's comment or recommendation to incorporate a meaningful amount of light industrial. If you can help us understand sort of like how much are you willing to devote to light industrial on first floors, that would be useful.
Sure. So initially, the applicant was concerned about finding a manufacturing tenant at the site, having multiple conversations, substantive conversations, and working collaboratively with Evergreen. We've been able to identify several types of uses that would be appropriate. The floor plate itself only measures about 6,000 square feet. So as you can imagine, there's a limited, pool of potential tenants who could use 6,000 square feet for an industrial space. Evergreen has explained that there are a number of tenants looking for smaller maker space, small fabrication facilities, studio space, and the applicant is committed to working with the organization to do that. As Elena mentioned, there have been changes to the building design to accommodate those uses. Not only, once they can identify the right tenant who can use a space that doesn't, demand heavy truck parking and loading, the building itself can actually, programmatically fit their needs with the higher ceiling heights and with the increased live load capacity.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And again, thank you for the clarification of that and the reassertion that you're going to be exploring potential design changes to accommodate that. I'm just looking for a number. If once you were able to maybe advance that conversation, if you can circle back with just kind of like an idea of how much space you're willing to accommodate for that, that would be useful. And specifically, whether you would consider what the community board is recommending in terms of that legally binding agreement. The other question that I have. Oh, go ahead.
So go ahead. No, go ahead, Commissioner. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. There's a little bit of a delay, so I can wait.
Okay, thank you. So again, the floor plate measures, the ground floor measures about 7,500 square feet. After taking into consideration deduct, mechanical space and the core, there's about 6,000 square feet. Currently, the applicant team is proposing to divide the space into 2 units. But again, it's flexible in the sense that it could be one tenant taking the entire 6,000 square feet. There's also going to be cellar space in the building, so to the extent storage is needed, that also can accommodate, some of the light manufacturing. It can accommodate accessory space for that use. With regard to the written commitment, as you can imagine, it's very difficult to do that. There's a mortgage on the property. Putting something in writing would contradict the terms of the mortgage. These owners have been in the community for over 20 years. They're not leaving the community. They work around the block from the community. The hope is, to have a thriving business that will preserve what the community board wants moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, anything that you can submit in your follow-up in writing in terms of understanding the space configuration that you're setting aside for manufacturing, for industrial, that would be useful. The other quick question is, especially thinking about a rezoning from M to MX, but also the fact that, as you've stated, part of the purpose of this is to legalize non-conforming residential uses. And, our role is to talk about the public benefit of that or the community benefit of that. I'm wondering if there are opportunities to subsidize rents for industrial tenants and or, where do you see sort of like the constraints or the opportunities there?
It's something we could further explore with our client. This building is fully, there's no public funding going to this building. It's privately funded. Again, to the extent that there is a business that can succeed there, and it makes sense for all parties, again, the applicant team is more than happy to work with them. But at the moment, there are no subsidies available out there for something like this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And once you're there, if you can share with us maybe what would be the approximate rents that you'd be looking at in terms of,
Sure.
where we are, that would be useful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
If there's any member of the public that would like to speak on this item, now is your time.
We don't have anyone signed up.
Okay.
Enjoy your day.
If not, this hearing is closed. Thank you.
The fourth public hearing is calendar numbers 33 and 34, Fort Hamilton Muse rezoning, Community District 10, calendar number 33C 260238 ZMK, calendar number 34N 260239 ZRK, public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning Fort Hamilton Muse rezoning. There'll be a 3-minute presentation by the applicant team in person.
Good morning, Chair Sherman. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Paul Prue on behalf of the applicant BWH Group. Daniel Grinston from BWH is available online for any questions. We're here to present the Fort Hamilton Muse proposal in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, Community Board 10. This is an existing R6B zoning district that we're proposing to map an R7X C24 district over. There's a small sliver of R5B on this large 132-foot deep site. The site is located across from a large C82 triangle, which you see here. The C82 district is populated by the type of automobile uses that you would expect. Much like our own site, recently it's been rezoned partly to R8A for a private applicant about a month ago. Otherwise, the surrounding neighborhood is occupied by a mix of residential homes, multifamily, and commercial uses on the ground floor extending up the avenues. Our existing 38,000 square foot site is occupied currently by a Staples with a 50-space parking lot and a 32-foot curb cut. Staples is changing their business model and is thinking about other things. We have an opportunity to end their lease and develop this building that you see here. This is essentially a proposal for housing. Bay Ridge, Brooklyn has increased 9% in population over the last 15 years, but their housing has only increased by 1%. 5 of those units developed over the last 15 years were affordable. This building would propose 292 units of housing, 88 of which would be affordable under MIH option 2. There would also be a large commercial space occupying the ground floor and cellar level at the corner, which you see here, and a large community facility space, approximately 20,000 square feet, occupying mainly the cellar further up the block. Approximately 75 attended parking spaces provided on a voluntary basis, mostly, would be provided below grade, with a singular vehicular entry point at the southeast corner, which you see a little further down the block here. There would likewise be a 32-foot curb cut required for that entrance and the loading berth. And that's it. I think I'm under the 3 minutes. Are there any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. What is the, I know it's in the, I think it's in the racial equity report, but what is the AMI for the community board in which this site is located?
The AMI for the community district, I don't know that I have that number. The city number, AMI is measured by HUD. What we're proposing is 30% of the units at 80% AMI. And, that would be a mix of 60, 80, and 100% units as required by the affordability mixes under the inclusionary program.
Yeah, understood. What I'm trying to better gauge is whether or not the local AMI is in some proximity to the price ranges reflected in MIH2.
Well, my understanding from the department is that about 100% AMI is the local measure. I'm not sure where that number comes from, but that would indicate that the permanent affordability we'd be offering with MIH would be a mix of sort of at market rate units at the moment and slightly below market rate units. I think the key thing here with our option 2 proposal is that that would provide the most affordable housing units for this district, where there have been so few affordable housing units provided over the last 15 years. Now, approximately 23% of the units in this neighborhood are rent stabilized as a result of, years of regulation. But there's been no new affordable housing, and there is some risk of displacement here, and on account of the fact that there has been so little new investment in the area.
No, it's clearly a dearth of affordable units being developed. There's no question about that. I'm just trying to, I'm asking you whether or not this is, how would you respond to the question of whether or not those units are affordable to the local community?
Yeah, well, I think they'd be very much affordable. I think the question is whether, additional, to bring down the AMI would, require fewer units. And our sense here is that the more units, the better. And again, that's why we picked the option 2. I think it's fewer units at a lower AMI, though, would, I'm sure, be as appreciated. We haven't received a lot of feedback on that point from community members or the council member, but we're certainly open to the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question from Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for your presentation. I was wondering if you can respond a little bit to the community board's position on this. I'm specifically interested, thank you for your response to Vice Chair Knuckles on affordability. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about sewer flooding and infrastructure capacity, but also cumulative impacts.
Yeah, well, so on the sewer issue, that was a big point of concern amongst community members. There's a lot of flooding going on this site, in this neighborhood, all over the place. The local sewer system has not been updated in decades. And so there are clearly some infrastructural improvements that should be completed here over time. It appears that there will be a lot of new housing developed in this area in the next 5 years, and hopefully the infrastructure follows. Our site will be subject to the law, which requires that green roofs be provided and that rainwater retention occur on site. And so this will be a vast improvement over the existing condition, which is essentially half a surface lot with, off flow onto the street. With regard to cumulative impacts, again, my understanding is that there are some talks at the council, perhaps in the department, about the C82 zone immediately across the street and potentially doing some neighborhood planning there, which would certainly trigger, its own impact study. But, relative to the cumulative impacts of, we're just one site, and we're here before any of that planning has started, amongst a couple of other private applicants over the course of the last 5 years or so. This is one of the larger sites in the neighborhood at 300 feet by 132 feet deep. And in a way, that's our strength, but in a way it's also a weakness. It's, from a design perspective, it's difficult to break up that long, massive building in a way that, kind of corresponds to the context. And we're hoping that we can still make some improvements on that before the process is complete. But at the same time, the 39,000 square foot site is an opportunity to provide more housing units than have been provided in this neighborhood in decades. So we're trying to thread that needle.
You're muted, Commissioner.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for your responses. I appreciate them. I'm just trying to understand, how do we balance both the creation of new housing here with what could be or with the infrastructure needs and requirements for all of us to be able to address them. So if you can, in your follow-up, share a little bit more detail technically in terms of, what you just said, in terms of how you're planning to balance that in what relates to how the new housing may exacerbate existing infrastructure needs. I would appreciate that, specifically in terms of the energy efficiency proposed by the building. Thank you for acknowledging local laws 9294. But I just want to understand, given the specifics of this application, what are the energy efficiency standards that you're proposing, and whether or not, how are you contributing to the larger infrastructure scene here?
Well, yeah, this would be an all-electric building, and as I mentioned, the rainwater retention, there would be an active rooftop with some plantings for sustainability measures. I think the other thing about our place in this neighborhood is that we're knitting together two sort of neighborhood retail components that have been long established in the neighborhood, both to the south and the north. And with that will come the street trees that are required, and we're also proposing to do some small investments in the Triangle Park to our southwest. There's an Adopt a Park program that would allow us to make a small donation to increase the street trees. There are some tree pits there that have not been planted, and we would plant those. And then we would also put a coat of paint on a flagpole and the fence. These are minor improvements, but they, I think, do submit, in a minor way to sustainability issues and just neighborhood quality of life concerns.
Thank you. If you can share the drawings to see how that would look like, I would appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Thank you. Who's the architect on this?
Yuri Menzak.
And do you know if the building is going to be split? It's going to be two buildings, or it's going to be one building?
It's going to be one building.
Will you be taking advantage of the 485X?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I suppose it's somewhat of an open issue on how that will be addressed. There was an article today about 485X and the 99 unit kind of issue. We've attempted to avoid that for the time being, but I suppose it's an open issue as to how that would be addressed still in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? All right. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now open up to members of the public who are signed up to testify. We will start with Stephanie Simone Mahoney from Brooklyn Community Board 10.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to submit testimony regarding this proposal. I'm Stephanie Simone Mahaney. I'm the chair of the Zoning and Land Use Committee for CB10 in Brooklyn. At a duly publicized meeting, CB10 voted to recommend disapproval of the proposed R7X rezoning while recommending that the site instead be evaluated within the context of a broader neighborhood planning framework, with R6A considered as a more moderate contextual zoning alternative. CB10's adopted motion recognizes the need for increased housing supply. The evaluation of the proposed R7X district was made in the context of the needs and conditions of the immediate area, including infrastructure capacity, neighborhood character, and cumulative impacts over time. Board discussion also emphasized the importance of understanding existing infrastructure constraints, including recurring sewer and drainage issues within the district, before introducing additional density through rezonings of this scale. Public testimony raised concerns about the scale, height, density, and massing of the proposed R7X district and its compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, the cumulative impacts of additional density, including traffic, parking, flooding, infrastructure capacity, environmental review, and the long-term precedent for future corridor rezonings within CD10. And whether intermediate zoning alternatives between R6B and R7X had been adequately explored. The board also expressed concern that rezonings along this corridor should not continue through isolated site-by-site applications without a broader neighborhood planning effort in coordination with elected officials, the community, and city planning to determine what level of development is appropriate and sustainable. And CB10 has already begun working with the local council member toward that objective. At the same time, the committee recognized that the site might be appropriate for some level of redevelopment and additional housing growth. In that context, R6A was identified for consideration as a more moderate and contextual alternative. Members noted that R6A would still represent a substantial increase over the existing zoning while allowing for additional housing opportunities in a manner viewed as more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood character and scale. And this recommendation is also consistent with Community Board 10's prior planning recommendations. During the rezoning of 9114 Fifth Avenue, the board worked with a local council member to support a contextual R7A district. And following the City of Yes zoning, The board believes that the R6A represents the comparable contextual district under today's zoning framework. Community District 10 already includes a diverse population and a broad range of housing types, and the board's recommendation for R6A reflects CB10's consistent planning approach, supporting additional housing through contextual zoning that considers neighborhood context, infrastructure capacity, and long-term sustainability. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. We have a question.
Thanks for the testimony, Stephanie, and appreciate Community Board 10's support of a larger study here in Bay Ridge to think about, especially some of the corridors, I think, that could actually accommodate more housing. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for your thinking there. I understand that there's some disagreement about the density that's appropriate here on this site, R7X versus R6A, but just wanted to thank you for your openness to that broader planning study of Bay Ridge.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's also a question from Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Thanks so much for taking the time to testify today. I appreciate that. I also very much appreciate your comments, your written comments. And I was wondering if you can share with us what's been the response from the applicant to both the concerns that you've raised and the specific recommendations that you've highlighted.
One of the things that keeps coming up is the green fast track, which permits this to move forward without additional environmental studies or I guess a greater rigorous study on the area, particularly with traffic and sewer. But the applicant, as he also stated earlier, the infrastructure issues are not necessarily within the purview of the developer, but nonetheless, this is a tremendous project, and this area has seen significant sewer issues in the past, including a sewer tunnel collapse, I think in 2012. The concerns were noted, but nothing, of course, has come of that in terms of new plans.
Thank you for your response, and thanks so much for highlighting your concerns regarding the green fast tracking. I share some of those concerns and hope that the commission and the department can engage with to see how can we maintain and accelerate the production of housing, but at the same time have meaningful and clear investment plans to address these cumulative infrastructure impacts as we move forward. So thank you so much for addressing highlighting them today.
Thank you for asking that question.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bernadette Carmen by phone. Bernadette Carmen?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, thank you. And thank you, Stephanie. That was actually a great reflection on the community, on how we feel. I live on 94th Street myself, and the amount of flooding is ridiculous, the amount that we have spent. And yes, the developers did kind of just put it onto the city. I understand that a rain roof will help a little, but it won't alleviate the problem, as well as the traffic. If you look at their design, they kind of made 94th Street a lot wider than it actually is, and they're looking to have a commercial and loading dock there for a potential supermarket. Our street isn't built to handle that. The traffic, when the Verrazano backs up, is out of control. Not only do you have bus stops there, you also have a fire department there. And I don't think that's being taken into consideration, that that's really the only fire department in the area. So a traffic and an environmental study, I think, would be great. We're not against developing, not in the least, but I think it has to be with a thoughtful and purposeful plan. And it's also not really affordable. So if they could make it a little bit more affordable so people in the area can go into the new build, that would be fantastic as well. That's all I have to say on it.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Our next speaker is Lauren Petrie. And I will just note, if there are any other members of the public who are interested in speaking, now is the time to sign up. We're getting to the end of this hearing.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Lauren Petrie, and I'm a resident nearby the proposed zoning site. I've also attended both CB10 meetings on this issue, so some of my testimony will be reflective of the overall sentiment from the community in those meetings. I respectfully oppose the proposed R7X rezoning because it is significantly out of scale with the surrounding area in Bay Ridge, which is zoned for buildings 5 to 6 stories in height, and would permanently increase density beyond what the existing infrastructure was designed to support. The proposal raises unresolved concerns about traffic congestion along Fifth Avenue and on the very narrow 94th Street side, which will become loading zones and parking lot entrances and exits. Parking shortages due to the increase in population in the area, as well as the inevitable decrease in parking spaces due to taking spots away for the loading and the entrances. Our neighbors' sewer capacity, flooding, and the cumulative impacts on our community of continued site-by-site rezonings without a comprehensive neighborhood planning process. While additional housing is very important to us and we support development at this site, many residents believe this proposal would alter the established character of Bay Ridge overall. Over 80 comment submissions from our community members to CB10 are against this large-scale rezoning, with only about 3 in favor of this application. A more moderate zoning approach, such as R6A, was suggested by the CB10 and should be considered as part of a broader community planning effort that balances responsible growth and that is also respectful of neighborhood character, infrastructure capacity, and long-term sustainability. 60 affordable housing units would still be established in our community with an R6A, according to the developer, as opposed to 88. While the developer said, quote, "Bay Ridge needs something bold," the residents of Bay Ridge have spoken and respectfully opposed the developer's application for rezoning to the absolute largest scale they can apply for, a 300-unit, 11 to 14 stories in height building. While the City of Yes already provides them more as-of-right development than a year ago, they still jumped to the largest R7X. A more moderate-sized building of 90 units just 1 block away was recently approved, so we are getting more housing in this area. And we as a community were told that this would not set precedent for large rezonings in this area to this immense scale. There has also been no environmental study, no traffic study, and the developer said that school capacity would be evaluated after the fact. I'd also like to add that the applicant is saying they'll invest in the Adopt a Park program for the triangle between 4th and 5th Avenue. And I just wanted to say that this is calling that area a park is incredibly generous, as it's a small area where you stand sort of between crossing 4th and 5th Avenues. The community appreciates the committee's consideration of our CB10's advisory letter and hopes that the committee will prioritize the suggestions in this letter. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Our last speaker is Marissa Falero.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Hi, how are you? I'm a resident of the very same block, 6109, and my property faces 92nd Street. From where I'm seated now, I can see the entire lot. I oppose the project as inconsistent with the community scheme and wholly infeasible. I agree with the commenter that the design is misleading. It makes it appear that the local streets are wider than they are. We're talking about a community that's tallest buildings are 4 floors. The surrounding neighbors, the tallest are 4 floors. The proposal of almost 12 floors will put all of our residents almost completely in the dark. The neighborhood is consistent with the special rezoning districting, which was purposed to keep the community's small town feel. We're located in a complete traffic snarl from 4th Avenue, 92nd Street, Fort Hamilton Parkway, all street, side street parking and those thoroughfares become parking lots from the hours of 3 to 7 due to the public school traffic and rush hour traffic. And when there are freeway and bridge closures, it's even worse. There's limited street parking, much is metered, and the shortage of parking is already a huge problem for residents. If you are a resident of this area, you must and you park on Gelston or 94th or Wogan Terrace, the only way out is 94th Street, and the proposed rezoning loan and parking entrance there will completely stall traffic, not to mention the fact that 300 families looking for parking on these same strange streets is going to be insane, considering that we've already approved 150 units at 9201 4th Avenue, and there is no parking for any of those residents at that location. I'm not sure why the applicant does not want to use the existing 5th Avenue curb cut, but it seems apparent to me that the 94th Street curb cut on a street that he admits is narrow is designed because he knows his 3 entrances on 5th Avenue will require double parking and loading and unloading that will block 5th Avenue already, and he's trying to alleviate that issue. Excavating a 2-floor garage about 20 feet is going to subject us all to unnecessary potential damage and flooding. There's no reason why there can't be an above-floor garage.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak on this item? If not, this hearing is now closed. Thank you.
The 5th public hearing on for today is calendar numbers 35 and 36, Park Avenue, Brooklyn rezoning, Community District 3, calendar number 35C 240218 ZMK, calendar number 36N 240219 ZRK, public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning Park Avenue, Brooklyn rezoning, and a notice. A public hearing is being held today by the City Planning Commission in conjunction with the above action to receive comments related to a draft environmental impact statement. This hearing is being held pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and the City Environmental Quality Review. There will be a 10-minute team presentation in person.
Good afternoon, Chair Sherman, Commissioners. My name is Ben Stark. I'm a land use counsel to Park Avenue Rezoning Partners. I'm joined by Stephanie Marazzi also from Merchant Singer Epstein, Bir Sabet, and their colleagues from AKRF Environmental Consultants.
Can you turn the mic on? Oh, it is, okay.
Park Avenue Rezoning Partners is a coalition of property owners and Jewish educational institutions with deep roots in the South Williamsburg and Bedford-Stuyvesant communities. They come before the Commission today with a single unified objective: to rezone 5 blocks of a legacy 1961-era manufacturing district along Park Avenue, zoning that no longer reflects how this neighborhood lives, works, or grows, in order to deliver 2 urgent public benefits: new school seats and affordable housing. As you may have already surmised, this is not a conventional rezoning. There is no single developer or property owner behind it. The consortium are owners and educational institutions, including the Beth Hana School, Central United Talmudic Academy, Yeshiva House of Israel, and Yeshiva Latzir Satmar, institutions that have served South Williamsburg community for decades. They are the educational and spiritual anchors of this neighborhood, and they share a common problem, that the zoning has not kept pace with the community they serve, a community that has been and will continue to grow exponentially. As to the residential sites in this application, they are not controlled by outside investors. They are owned by community members and community-affiliated entities who have been on these blocks for years. Meyer Stern, who's in the crowd today, is a principal behind the entities controlling sites A, B, and I. He's owned these blocks for decades, or property on these blocks for decades. Mr. Rosenberg controls Site F, is the owner and operator of Marcy Tires at 528 Park Avenue. You could go out there most days, and he's there working with his customers, getting his hands dirty. Also, as part of the consortium is the Hatzola of Williamsburg. It's a volunteer ambulance service that has served this neighborhood for generations, and they own Site J. This application addresses community needs in a single coordinated framework, and it does so without displacing a single existing resident. If approved, the rezoning will deliver over 2,500 new school seats across 4 educational facilities, over 390 new dwelling units with between 98 and 117 permanently affordable per MIH, and expansive new ground floor retail along Park Avenue with commitments by the applicants to try to retain existing tenants after construction. The project area straddles Park Avenue between Bedford Avenue to the west and Nostrand to the east, south of Flushing and north of Myrtle, in a transition zone between South Williamsburg and Bedford-Stuyvesant within Community District 3 and within the intertransit zone. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague Stephanie, who's going to give a brief overview of the reasonings behind this initiative.
Good afternoon. This community is experiencing rapid population growth, particularly amongst the school-age population. In this community, a large percentage of children attend private religious schools, and many families have up to 6 to 10 children. The need for schools is growing exponentially. The educational institutions who make up the applicant consortium are facing real challenges with lack of space and capacity. Our clients deal with families struggling to find school placements for their children. We've spoken with local rabbis and community leaders who see the strain firsthand. Parents coming to them desperate for options, siblings unable to attend the same school because of capacity constraints, and families facing multi-year wait lists. Families in this neighborhood also struggle with affordable housing. The city's affordable housing challenges are well documented and need no introduction. For this community as well, the problem is severe. Over half, 57.2% of Community District 3 residents are rent burdened, paying more than 30% of their income on rent. A third, 33.2%, are severely rent burdened, paying more than 50% of their gross monthly income on rent. The Park Avenue rezoning addresses both challenges with a comprehensive planning framework that will see, first, development of new educational facilities and legalization of existing educational uses. MX zoning will permit schools as of right on mid-block sites with the lot sizes to accommodate them, unlocking nearly 240,000 square feet of educational space and 2,535 school seats on long, narrow blocks that we believe to be ideally situated to ensure safe and orderly school operations, governed at each school by comprehensive arrival and dismissal protocols, designated drop-off and pickup zones, and as-needed coordination with NYPD school safety to ensure safe operations. And second, the development of approximately 391 dwelling units, 98 to 117 permanently affordable pursuant to MIH options 1 or 2. That's 25 to 30% affordability. Thank you.
Okay. The project area straddles Park Avenue between Bedford Avenue. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Stephanie. Just turning to a map here, going to walk through some spatial logic of the proposal. Park Avenue itself, within 100 feet of the street line on both sides, is proposed to be rezoned to an M14 R7D designation. This is where we'd see the residential buildings go, 7 to 11 stories with ground floor retail and an active street wall that will define Park Avenue going forward. And then the mid-blocks, Spencer, Sanford, Walworth, they're proposed to be rezoned to the same N14, but with an R61 mid-rise classification. This is where the schools will go, proposed to be 5 stories. This is not an accident of geography. The mid-blocks offer, as Stephanie said, long, deep lots that schools require, and they keep the school arrival and dismissal operations off the retail corridor of Park Avenue. I'm going to hand it over to Abir for a moment, just to give you a sense of existing land uses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. This land use map demonstrates that the rezoning area does not include a great deal of manufacturing or industrial use. It was carefully tailored to exclude active manufacturing or industrial uses to the greatest extent possible. The existing uses shown as purple within the rezoning area include 2 warehouses, an HVAC supply store, a tire shop, and a signage business. The parcels on the map shown in blue, black, and white give a sense of the active community facility ownership patterns and the preponderance of vacant or underutilized parcels, some operating as open uses, such as a wood pallet supplier and distributor, while others are merely used for parking or storage without a high concentration of employment. The land use map also shows a few non-conforming residential uses within and around this area and illustrates the effect of the 2001 Flushing-Bedford rezoning, which rezoned several blocks immediately west of the project area and established the MX district that is being extended across the project area. That rezoning resulted in numerous 5 to 7 story residential buildings directly to the west.
Thank you, thank you. And this slide illustrates what Abir was just saying, that project area has not stood still while the neighborhood around it has changed. It has evolved alongside it. The special mixed-use district map by the Bloomberg administration is shown here to the west. You can see the Marcy houses, another residential area to the east. And what has happened with the project area in between these two areas is that it has evolved naturally in concert with that community that was rezoned back in 2001. We have the rezoning area is now full of houses of worship, back offices, and auxiliary facilities for the landowning schools, neighborhood retailers, and the voluntary ambulance service that I had spoke about earlier. The zoning on the map in general has not kept pace with life on the ground. In fact, the zoning and life on the ground are moved in opposite directions. This overview here, existing conditions, gives you a sense of just the scale of that successfully rezoned neighborhood to the west undertaken by the Bloomberg administration, tens of thousands of new residents that weren't there more than 25 years ago. The project area sits between that area and the Marcy houses to the east, offering a natural bridge between the two established residential communities. It does not introduce something foreign to these blocks. It ratifies what is there, building upon it. The reality of this is not lost on elected officials and community representatives who have reviewed this application. Both the community board and borough president, in recommending conditional approval of the application, understand what the demographics make plain, that new schools to serve this growing community are not a question of if, they are a question of where. And the answer that sound community planning demands is close to the families they serve, not dispersed across the borough to wherever manufacturing zoning happens not to be mapped. Here, on these blocks where the institutions already exist and where the children live and where the community makes its home. This is a view up Park Avenue. You can see the Bloomberg era rezoning in the distance. You can see that retailers have come in the foreground in between. I'm going to move quickly here, running out of time, to the proposal itself. What you're seeing here are each of the three new schools and the one legalization school highlighted among the proposed new buildings. I'm going to jump as quick as I can through them, starting first with the Beth Hana School up on Spencer Street. They own their existing site. This is a vacant lot waiting for redevelopment. Beth Hana is a proposed high school for girls, just less than 500 proposed students. No busing is proposed at this particular school. Moving quickly to the largest school in the rezoning, the Central United proposal. This school, if approved, their existing condition, similar, being served as back offices for their existing facility that is operating under BSA variants. Just kind of can see it up, peeking its head above those parapets. Beth Hana would be a K through 12, over 1,400 students. Finally, Yeshiva, among the new schools, Yeshiva Haas Israel on the west side of Walworth, in close proximity to Central United School. What is nice about this is given the proximity of the two schools.
Time.
You can finish your sentence.
We feel strongly that the rationale of having the two schools in proximity to each other on either side of Walworth is sound community planning. It is allowing us, we're going to talk about more, I'm sure, during the question and answer period, of adopting required loading zones for the buses, not having a sort of scatter concept of different schools within a wider catchment basin where buses are apt to cause more traffic problems. Let's isolate them onto Walworth Street. Let's coordinate between the two institutions, operations during pickup and drop-off. One of many things that we hope to get forward for this commission through the question and answer period. Very quickly, this is the legalization school, also up on Spencer, same condition, opposite.
And we'll have it,
yep.
You'll be able to return to that when we go to
much.
questions. Thank you. So I'll kick off some questions, and then I know Commissioner Benjamin had a few as well. I know that the environmental impact statement identified at least 6 blocks that are particularly narrow, where there are impacts. So can you just clarify whether there are plans to, like the 5-foot extension of the sidewalk is a pretty common mitigation strategy. So can you just explain and clarify whether you plan to provide that?
Well, the first thing I would say is it's not as common as to our understanding, that it's not particularly common with this particular set of facts. So the impacts that were identified, the pedestrian impacts, not traffic impacts, the pedestrian impacts that were identified as part of this project are notably outside of the rezoning area. They are a quarter mile most of them are a quarter mile to the north along Flushing Avenue between Bedford to the west and Marcy to the east. The adoption of a 5-foot street widening along that section of Flushing would involve the removal of over 100 alternate side parking spaces, affecting 27 active businesses, many of which have curb cuts and active loading and unloading. We are totally sympathetic to what the seeker analysis has shown here, but this is a major planning initiative to adopt this 5-foot wide street widening. We believe it is appropriate for this to be done in a coordinated and well-considered way outside the context of a community development initiative to bring much-needed schools to an existing residential community. The impacts that a 5-foot wide, a 5-foot sidewalk widening would have up on Flushing are not captured by the seeker. For instance, there are numerous no standing zones in addition to the removal of alternate side parking that if those no standing zones are removed, not only are the businesses losing their ability to have people park in front of their stores, they're losing the ability to do loading and unloading. It is our belief that we would be introducing very real adverse traffic impacts by doing a 5-foot wide sidewalk widening. This is the complete picture here is one in which this is not something that we view should be a sort of throw-in to accommodate and to counter impacts related to a school initiative and housing initiative over a quarter-mile away, but should be viewed holistically in the context of well-considered traffic planning for the neighborhood at large. What I'll also add is that this applicant team has made considerable effort over the last year to find alternatives to mitigating that pedestrian impact. We had suggested mitigation measures that up to 2 years ago were widely accepted on countless prior applications, which is the moving of street furniture to open up pathways for people to walk. This is street furniture within the public right-of-way that the city would be empowered to move on their own accord. And we were told, and we're sympathetic to this, that policies at DOT have changed. They no longer accept the moving of street furniture as a means of mitigating a pedestrian impact. We're sympathetic to that. However, to the extent that policy could, on a project-by-project basis, be applied differently here, then we wouldn't have this impact to the degree that we do. If this application had come before the commission just 3 or 4 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation in the way that we are. I could say the same thing about other impacts that are a result of the residential component. I know we're going to speak about open space in just a little bit, so maybe I won't go to that. Yes, maybe I'll just wrap it up there as far as the pet impact. Thank you.
Sure. So just a few follow-up questions there. There are, I believe, at least 2 areas within those 6 streets where there's not parking or parking plan. Is there consideration of widening to the 5-foot in those 2 areas? And then I think secondly, right, obviously the concern here is these are narrow streets, there are curb cuts, truck routes, variety of uses. We're introducing schools with children, right? Like all of these things are of concern. From your perspective, adding these additional uses, do you envision that these will exacerbate the pedestrian conditions there, and are there plans to address safety as part of that?
Thank you so much for that question. It's really what we hope the commission would be focusing on. One of the PED impact locations, only one of the 7 is within the rezoning area, and it's immediately about adjacent to the Central United site on, see on sort of the bottom of the screen here, it's not highlighted. That PED impact location is one that, in our view, could be mitigated by the commitment that we have made or are willing to make to set these buildings back by 5 feet across the full frontage of the schools, each school set back 5 feet. In addition, in the entryways of the building, another 5 feet to have a sort of queuing space. We are also willing to work with property owners adjacent to Central United to have them set back 5 feet. So in our view, this area along the east side of Walworth would be mitigated to a reasonable degree Does this meet certain seeker particulars because we are only widening for a portion of Walworth? Yes, we can concede that we would not be able, as only a partial property owner on the east side of Walworth, to set back 5 feet from across the whole block. But these are unusually long blocks. I don't have the number in front of me. I think these are 2,000 footers. But to set back voluntarily for half of one of these block fronts, which is what we could deliver, would, in our view, certainly alleviate PED conditions that would be associated with the current sidewalk condition, notably. Further, as we've worked with DOT and the department at length, and we're very thankful for the agency's coordination on this, we have prepared school operation plans. We have bus loading zones that are staggered so as to ensure safe drop-off and pickup during dismissal. The plan is to have the schools coordinate with guards out at these particular time periods. And I'll just add that having worked on this project for years, that there are safety aspects that are there are school safety aspects that are just not captured by seeker in a way that is quite frustrating. Having visited each of our constituent owners' existing facilities and noting what conditions are like at drop-off and pickup for schools that are on two-way streets. What do you see when you visit a school on a two-way street? You see the bus pull up, you see the little red stop sign pull out, and then you see a car rip right past the bus. It is maddening to stand there for 2-3 hours and watch a drop-off and pickup period and see the degree to which the public violates sort of safety dynamics. This is why we've been singing from the top of the mountain that having schools on a narrow street, on a long narrow street, is actually the safest thing that you can do. When the buses pull up, there is other traffic is incapable of pulling by the bus. It naturally creates the safe condition by holding the traffic tight, and coupling that together with the coordinated bus loading and operations plan and the communication between these facilities. We are high confidence that this is sound planning and as safe of a place for new schools as one could find in the neighborhood. And that's a real key thing that we desperately want the commission to understand, which is there will be new schools built. There has to be new schools built. This is a demographic wave coming. And the schools need, as I know this commission knows, 7,500 square foot of floor plate, 10,000 square foot floor plates, 12.5. It is very challenging to find sites for new schools. I worked with a school operator in Bay Ridge for a decade at one point trying to find a location. They just don't exist in a city that is built out. And so what happens is the schools end up building far from their constituencies, which means aggressive busing is needed. If we can put the schools near their constituencies, like we're doing here, the amount of necessary busing goes down. As you can see, 2 of our 4 facilities here won't even need any busing at all. It is sound planning here. So thank you.
And just before I turn over, just for clarification, for the safety measures that you shared, the crossing guards and some of the other measures that you mentioned, will that still, are you addressing any of the impediments within the pedestrian areas, or are there any areas where there would be a widening?
Well, certainly we've offered for the one area that's within the rezoning area. Our hand is raised. We are willing to set these buildings back and have additional buildings that are like Mr. Rosenberg's site is north of Central United site. That's site F that you're seeing on the screen there, that we'd be willing along Walworth to have that building set back 5 feet. We are coordinating with the intervening owner in between Central United's building and Mr. Rosenberg's building to have their building set back. And all of this, we are open and willing to memorialize in restrictive declarations to ensure the partial mitigation of that impact location. All the other impact locations are outside the rezoning area and would require, in order to mitigate per seeker, the removal of, particularly up on Flushing, over 100 parking spaces impacting 27 businesses. The the key point here is the only option that the Department of Transportation has given this applicant team to resolve the pedestrian impact, despite there being prior policies up to just 2 years ago to allow the moving of street furniture. The only option that was given to this applicant team was to basically commit to the removal of an intense amount of alternate side parking, the removal of loading zones for active businesses, which collectively amounts to a planning initiative that is appropriately is one that would appropriately be an initiative unto itself. Charrettes with the community, speaking with local businesses, understanding their needs, understanding how we can mitigate the impact of that mitigation itself. This is a bridge that we're struggling to see why the initiative. I mean, we see it, we understand seeker, and we're sympathetic to seeker, but we're struggling to sort of understand why the desperate need for school seats and affordable housing a quarter mile away from Flushing Avenue must be coupled with a demonstrably impactful sidewalk widening that to the detriment of countless businesses. That we struggle to see why these things have to travel together and travel together on the heading of this community-based planning initiative. If it's appropriate, we struggle to conclude that it is our call to make that. It feels like it's a bigger thing that the whole community needs to come together and talk about.
Okay. So thank you for your response. I'm going to turn it to Commissioner Benjamin, and then I know Commissioner Osorio has his hand up as well.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I have a number of questions, but my first question is, can you describe and give us a list of exactly who the applicant is?
Sure. Well, we have the 4 schools. We have essentially.
Are they part of the applicant?
Absolutely.
LLC.
Yeah, let me look back. What is the LLC? The LLC is going to disappear the moment the rezoning is done. The LLC existed solely for the owners to combine their resources to pay lawyers and architects and environmental consultants. That's it. So the owners, who many of whom are in the crowd today, make up the LLC. The LLC consists of the 4 schools, and it consists of 3 or 4 of the largest property owners, like Mr. Stern.
What I'm looking for, and you can give it to me in writing, is a list of each one of the applicants, the constituent applicants in the LLC, and the property they own, and which properties are not a part of the LLC.
Absolutely, we'll follow up in writing. Some of this is in the project description, but we'll isolate this into a deliverable for the commission. Absolutely.
Good, because when you talk about a restrictive declaration in a rezoning area, of course, there's a concern that not everyone is a party to it.
Oh, that I can respond to very quickly, because we've been working with Council's office for some time on the restrictive declaration. The Park Avenue Rezoning Partners is not signing the restrictive declarations. They're going to be signed by the property owners who make up Park Avenue Rezoning Partners.
Right, but some don't. Well, some don't make it up.
Yes, the largest sites in the rezoning area, the applicant-controlled sites, would be the ones who would sign the restrictive declaration. Declarations, there's one for each.
Right, and I do have an issue with that. You should know that. And the schools themselves, how many buses currently are used for the school that's on site? The school.
That I have to follow up. I do have the information to how many buses we will need post approval. It would be 20 for Central United at drop off and pickup, and 2 for Bahavas. So in that corridor on Walworth, there'd be 20 for the school on the east side, 2 for the school on the west side. So it'd be 22 during drop off and pickup.
And do do most of the children who you anticipate would enroll in these schools live from Myrtle Avenue to the BQE, or are they on the other side of the BQE?
I can follow with more particular information. I don't have the top of my head, but certainly a large contingent of the students are expected to walk, but we can follow up with more information on that.
And in the new schools, where they expect the majority of the students their O&Y information.
Okay.
Because one of the issues in this larger area, not the rezoned area, but the larger community area, is in fact the buses. And that while you've described a situation where that is unsafe for the students, it is also unsafe for people walking and riding their bicycles because the buses on one-way streets park diagonally. That leads to other traffic problems and the backup of traffic through intersections. So I understand what you're saying about two-way street and what would they do in cars, because cars will do crazy things. But I'm also concerned about what the impacts of the buses are as they're picking up and dropping off students in the wider community and where that wider community is, which is why I want the information about where the kids are coming.
Yeah, and I can speak to part of this right now because this was a major issue raised at the community board. It may have been the most consistent comment at the community board. And the applicant, certainly Central United, who has the largest bus contingent among the, well, two of them don't have any bus contingent. But for Central United, who has the larger bus contingent, we have to work to ensure that there's a plan in place for storage of the buses overnight. You know, we need to ensure that parking of these buses is in as close proximity as we can to both the catchment area of the students and eventual, school location. But we will say that one of the reasons that we again think that this is a sound planning is that Walworth is a northbound moving block,
well,
and
I only live
given
a few blocks from here.
Understood, and given that the schools are positioned sort of on the northern end of this northbound long block, it gives a comparatively fairly long runway for the buses as they turn that corner onto Walworth. And it's like, okay, we're not turning the corner and then immediately doing our drop off so that buses are queuing behind. You're turning that corner and you've got 2,000 feet to go before the drop-off happens. So
but when they're dropping the children off on the other side, when the children are leaving school, the blocks that they're going to may not have that 2,000 square foot runway.
Fair, where they live. But
right,
one thing that we have worked with, and is pretty neat, is we're required, and have worked with DOT on this, have special buses that have doors on both sides. So during drop-off and pickup from the, my point is to say that at the end of the day, when pickup from the school happens, is the pulling up to both institutions on the east and west sides of that particular street is comparatively as cohesive as we feel is possible given an urban context.
Right, but I'm also talking about the pick-off and drop-off at the student's residence.
It's fair. So we need to get you the information as to our expected catchment area. I mean, it is at the genesis of the application, so we'll follow.
And where the buses would be parking overnight and on weekends. Where do they anticipate? Right now, a lot of the buses park for weekends along the BQE access road. I can't say they're from this particular school, but there are a row of buses on the weekends that park in any available location. So I'd like to know where that bus parking would be.
Understood.
In terms of a planning issue. Why an MX zone when you don't really suggest that manufacturing uses are going to be continued? Why not just a residential?
Thank you for this question. This is something we worked with city planning a lot, and it's an interesting wrinkle of the zoning. For one, we'll say that in the interim between the extent that we're able to secure approval and development, the MX will allow the continued conformance of certain uses within the rezoning area. Sure, put that to the side. The big one is that the MX rules do benefit massing for community facilities in a way that the underlying residential does not, particularly with regard to the rear yard requirements and lot coverage requirements. You may recall that, so basically you can do a 20-foot rear yard for schools in MX. You have to do a 30 in the residential district. You may recall a few things that are fundamental to this application. We got to set these buildings back so that we can have a queuing area on the sidewalk. So if we're having to provide a 30-foot rear yard and we set the front of the building back, we're losing occupiable space. The other thing that is a big part of this, and it's going to tie into some later conversation I'm sure we're about to have, is this application is proposing tens of thousands of square feet of rooftop play areas for the kids. This is a huge part of this application. You can see them up on, well, they're not on the screen right now, but I'll go back. Get the picture. The best foot forward from a design standpoint is not to have a setback story, is to build schools with as large of a floor plate as possible. So to the extent that we had a 30-foot rear yard requirement and we're going to set back 5 feet in the front, from a ZFA standpoint, now we're looking at a setback floor, a 6th floor. If we have a 6th floor, sure, there's knock-on consequences like comparatively higher construction cost, issues with the core and the elevator. Yeah, but the big impact is that we've now taken a uniform roof area that was going to be devoted to as big of a playground as we could have, and we've sort of cut it in a way that, from a program standpoint,
is they shrunk
it. Right. So we understand that as it looks on the screen, that the MX may not look as appropriate as just a general R, but there's real and envelope issues here.
Right, and I understand why it might be I understand why it might be beneficial in terms of the envelope. You're not intending to find manufacturing, to encourage manufacturing, to the spirit of an MX is that there would be some intent, at least, to have manufacturing.
Well, the other thing I can say is one of our other commitments is that along Park Avenue there is a series of retailers that I had explained that had moved in serving the surrounding residential communities. There's some wholesalers as well, and these are in some instances sort of like, is it retail? Is it wholesale? What use group are you falling into? I'm sure the commission is familiar with how some uses can sort of fall one way or the other. These are long-standing operators that ownership is not just open to returning, but it makes economic sense to have them return because they've been in these buildings for so long and pay their rent. And so there are certain users who may benefit from the MX rules if they're a use group 9, for instance, as opposed to a 6. But the point's taken. And
my last question is, if you were to set back 5 feet, would you commit that none of those, you or the lot next to you, would have a fence or anything else that could prohibit?
Yes.
Even though it's a school, and many parents will want to have that protection.
No, we don't want a fence. The setting back is what widens the sidewalk. And so you would commit to that in a restrictive declaration form, and the other owners that might be involved would commit also? The one other site that would be implicated by this is one of the projected development sites. This is lot 68. It's actually just it's that little gap in between Central United and the Park Avenue facing residential building that you see shadowed out there in dark. And initial conversations with this owner suggest that they would be willing to agree to this, to a restrictive declaration to set their building back as well, to the extent that it means the success of this application. They're a projected development site, not one of the applicant's sites, but we would make that effort, certainly.
Thank you, and I'll be waiting for the information you're providing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you so much, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation and the documentation that you've submitted. Thanks so much for addressing our questions. I wanted to talk a little bit about the findings in the DEIS, and to give you an opportunity to fully respond. As you might have heard from the review session, a series of us had questions about some of the significant adverse impacts. And let's start with that. So in terms of open space, as you hinted, the report says what it says. I'm not going to repeat it, but I do want to highlight how, the mitigation chapter states that the Department of City Planning, in collaboration with Parks, has actually determined that the provision of 5,050 square feet of publicly accessible open space, I want to highlight the publicly part, will actually suffice, will fully mitigate the impact. And so what is your response to that?
Thank you for the question. So this is the uniqueness of the project, to have not a singular developer controlling the project. We have a series of owners spread out among a wider rezoning area. City planning, in our conversations, as you alluded to, proposed one particular option, which was the provision of a single 5,000 square foot publicly accessible open space. It's a who gets the burden kind of question. You have a diffuse rezoning application, very unique for the city. It is in a sense like a mini neighborhood rezoning, and which owner takes it on the chin, so to speak. It would present particular sort of transactional dynamics of, well, okay, this particular owner is going to devote their land to the open space to the benefit of the other owners. We very quickly noted our preference, to the extent that we could, to mitigate through the improvement to the local public open space network, as opposed to the provision of the open space on site, given the sort of unique nature of having a multi-owner, multi-party rezoning. So it's a fair segue to say that our conversations regarding improvement to the local public open space network have been incredibly active over the last couple of weeks. I know this is a point of high concern for the commission. I can say proudly that the applicant team is willing today to commit to the making of improvements to the local Taffy playground in order to mitigate to best of its ability the open space impact.
So just to clarify, you're saying no to the creation of the 5,000. That's your position.
We are saying no in relation to the alternative, which is to commit resources to the improvement of the local public open space network, given the challenges of devoting one property owner's property to a public open space, in a sense, sort of burdening them as compared to all the other owners who are participating in this. It just presents in our view, a sort of a transactional challenge. Yeah. So
no, understood. And it's clear that you also have between now and then the final EIS to actually sort of like complete your proposed mitigation strategy. I just want to highlight how no mitigation strategy here is a big concern, because the numbers that the impact is really clear in terms of how much you're reducing the amount of open space, and not just as a total number, but both in terms of passive and active spaces. So I encourage you to think about that and make sure that, when you fully respond to that point in the FEIS, or as you follow up to this hearing, you help us understand how much you're increasing those numbers, because that's how we have to look at it.
Understood. And just to, again, clarify, we are sort of like news of the day. We have had our conversation. It's challenging. We're a group of owners. It is not a singular participant in this. and we're having to have coordinated conversation with Parks about this. The news of the day, we are willing to commit to a notable financial contribution or sort of self-help, we could do the work ourselves kind of thing, as memorialized in restrictive declarations to improve Taffy Playground, a part of the existing public open space network, through the improvement of the local ball courts, to provide active improvements that aren't there to the quality that the city demands.
Well, I understand, and I appreciate what you said. I just wanted to let you know I'm looking forward to your response and seeing how you plan to distribute, if not in one single site, those 5,000 square feet, just to understand sort of like how are we mitigating that. The other question that I had, so you probably heard this as well in the neighborhood character chapter. The DEIS lists 145 potentially displaced workers in 19 businesses. And so, in hearing your response to Commissioner Benjamin, which I very much share that question, and hearing you say that there's not going to be any manufacturing, in the proposed land use mix, but thinking that construction, manufacturing, and wholesale trade more or less account for 10% of those potentially directly displaced workers. I'm just trying to understand what's the plan to make sure that these New Yorkers are not going to be out of work and therefore, really bearing the burden of this. So help us understand what's the plan there. I know that the applicant controls a lot of those businesses, but since there are no industrial businesses in the mix, and as you pointed out, the wholesale trade businesses here are all related with plumbing and construction supplies. I'm a little concerned about displacement of these workers.
Thank you. So I can say a few things on this point. Of the 145 employees identified by the EIS as being potentially displaced, right off the top, you can say there's 57 of them that are on proposed development site one. This is the site that's only proposed for enlargement. In many of those, there's a pharmacy. There's a healthcare facility on a second floor. So sort of right off the top, there's 57 employees that we actually don't expect to be displaced, given that their building is proposed to remain. The residential component will be an enlargement up above. There are 30 of the 145 potentially displaced, although I could revise that down to 90-something after what I just said. There are 30, like you said, employees in, call it the M trades, manufacturing, wholesale, what have you. Some of them are some of these facilities are proposed to go elsewhere. So like Mr. Rosenberg's tire shop, it's become a challenge for him to operate a tire shop at that location as part of the reason why he's a participant in this application. We're not right close to the BQE. We're a little bit away. So to have the large trucks coming through this neighborhood, it has in time made the operation of that business a challenge. Our understanding is that he intends to find a new location following the sort of closing of he's the owner and operator of that tire shop. So he intends to go somewhere else and continue operations. So those employees would ostensibly be carrying on with that to the extent they want to go to wherever they newly operate. There are, like you said, there are wholesale employees working in the wholesale trades that, because these are sort of storefront uses, the hope would be that they could come back into purpose-built spaces, or that their employers could reopen in purpose-built spaces on the ground floor. So we can't sit here and say that all 30 of these 145 or so potentially displaced employees that operate in the sort of M trades wouldn't be impacted. Some may be impacted, but we would also add that the proposed development of nearly 250,000 square feet of school space, our understanding in speaking with the school operators, that it's roughly like one staff member for every 10 students or so. So if you're building and entitling 2,500 school seats, there could be potentially up to 250 or more staff members associated with just the school. I know that they're not all within the rezoning area right now. Some of them are, in the auxiliary spaces operated by the schools currently, but certainly these schools would be on a hiring spree once the new facilities are built. So yes, we understand that there could be an impact on some end-use employees, but the net gain from an employment standpoint is substantial here. There'll be far more people working in the rezoning area if this initiative is approved and these buildings are developed. Far more.
Well, thank you for your response. I appreciate that. I encourage you to submit in writing, whatever is your latest sort of like proposal to mitigate that. I do want to remind you that according to the city's industrial retention plan, this is a neighborhood industrial area where there is an intent to keep industrial. So, help us understand what's the community benefit of this, but specifically, what is the plan to protect working class New Yorkers from potentially losing their jobs?
Understood. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional questions?
So I'm very much in favor of the idea of consolidating the schools into a condensed area. Can you speak to me about any additional security measures that will be put in place?
Additional security measures. It's something I could follow up in writing, and it's not a question I was particularly prepared for. I can certainly say off the cuff that given that these are urban schools, there are as part of just standard practices, security elements in place. What is, again, unique about this school is the ability to coordinate between the institutions, to have sort of eyes on the street during periods of time when the doors are open. That's an element that we think is, again, really supportive of the planning rationale here. But we can follow up with more specific comment on that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just note, I think building off of some of Commissioner Thoriel's comments, just the importance of making sure that we're addressing the specific issues that were raised in the EIS and mitigation. And so just, it'd be helpful to understand whether there's willingness to consider the 5-foot extension of the sidewalk and some of the other mitigation efforts that were addressed around pedestrian safety, because I know that that's a pretty important part of it.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We will now open to our public hearing. Councilmember Ressler?
Great. Thank you. Congratulations, Chair. Commissioners, nice to see you all. Appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today. I have the privilege of representing this whole area, and generally I don't insert myself in the middle of ULURP applications. I have a role to play at the end of the process, and respect the community boards and the City Planning Commission for the role you have to play along the way as well. But this is just too important. Frankly, the number one reason I hear from young families in Williamsburg that they can't stay in the community is because we don't have the school seats to accommodate them. And so people are moving to Kirs Joel, to Muncie, to to New Jersey, even New Jersey. Just want to say that, jokingly, but not totally, because we don't have the school capacity to actually meet their needs. And it's disgraceful. This project was brought to me when I won my primary in 2021 of June. I sat down with community leaders that summer to talk about how we could advance this proposal. And the applicants were all prepared to apply individually to see this move forward, and the Department of City Planning insisted that this be a joint application and that everyone work together. It has dramatically slowed down the process, and so 5 years later, we're still waiting to get it across the finish line, but it also created all of these mitigations that are therefore needed. Mitigations that I have to say, have been really frustrating. I personally engaged with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Parks over the last 2 years to try to get them to provide responses on the environmental review. It was painfully slow to get them to even respond. And when they did, they've been uncooperative and tried to advance their own policy agendas rather than look at how do we address and advance the very real needs that are being advanced in this proposal. I am grateful that the applicant is trying to make this work, and they're going to renovate the handball courts at the Taffy Playground. I don't know if anyone still plays handball. I didn't know, but there's a relatively small number. It's a very underutilized court, but if that's what's required for this to move forward, then let's get it done. The applicants, as administrators of local schools, care more about the safety of the children in this community than anyone. And I know that they are committed to making sure that we create the necessary space for kids to get in and out of school and to protect those children and the whole communities moving in and around the area. But the mitigations that have been proposed, I think, don't work for this community. And we need to ensure that vehicles are able to get around the community in a safe and efficient way. And the sidewalk extensions, I think, are not a solution that works in this area. So I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to identify alternative approaches that meet the needs of the local community. I will say that you have many different leaders from the community in Williamsburg here today who may not be involved in the specific schools, but are here because this is so important to the community as a whole. By adding these thousands of additional school seats and nearly 400 apartments, we will be able to keep generations of families in this community. To Commissioner Benjamin's questions earlier, I can attest as the local council member that families live in this immediate area and will be walking to school and live in the immediate proximity to these schools that are going up in the community. We've recently added multiple other schools in this immediate area, and it's because this is where the community is growing most rapidly. To the questions posed by Commissioner Osorio, we of course want to make sure that the owners are working with the industrial businesses to find alternatives, and my office will do everything we can to try to help make sure that any business that wants to stay in the community and is interested in continuing, we'll help them find an alternative location. And on the safety question, I'm very proud that the City Council has made resources available to these non-public schools for additional reimbursement for security staff, as well as for security cameras at these facilities that are available to them. So I really appreciate the chance to testify before you all today to just underscore how important this is. We know that the number one demographic of people leaving New York City are young families that are struggling to afford childcare, that are struggling to afford to live here. It's indeed why Mayor Mamdani centered this issue on his campaign. And the same is true in the heart of Williamsburg and Bed-Stuy. For this community, for the Williamsburg Hasidic community, we are losing families because we don't have the school capacity. This is a solution that we have needed for years, and I'm grateful that we were able to certify, and I'm really hopeful we'll be able to get the cooperation from the members of this board to chart a path forward so that we can add this urgently needed community need, address this urgently needed community need.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we will call up our next speaker. And apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name. Cham Mendel. Hi, Mendel. Sorry.
Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for your time. As I'm executive director of United Medical Academy, we have 15 facilities across Williamsburg. We have 12,000 children. I can testify that about 75–80% of our children are living on the previous question asked from Myrtle down. So we have only a small portion of students which live from Myrtle up. So basically this heavy populated area of the children. I stand before you today to strongly support the proposed rezoning of our area, primarily because it's prioritized a common sense community first approach to education. By adjusting our zone to align with the local schools, we're giving our children the fundamental right to attend school within their own neighborhood. This change does more than just fill desks. It allows our students to safely walk or bike to class. In a time where transportation logistics and bus shortages cause daily stress for working families, bringing our school zones closer to home eliminates these unnecessary burdens. A walkable zone empowers children to be more active, builds a tighter-knit community, and allows students to participate fully in the after-school programs without worrying about catching a ride home. Furthermore, having schools within a reasonable distance from our homes significantly improves student attendance and engagement. It keeps our local school integrated in the immediate community, making families more likely to plant permanent roots and invest in our neighborhood's future. Let's keep our education accessible, convenient, and truly local. I urge you to vote in favor of this rezoning proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Zev Steinmetz.
Dear Honorable Board, good afternoon. My name is Zev Steinmetz. I live and work in this area, and my son attends one of the yeshivas included in this application. Having served as an administrator for that yeshiva for many years, I understand how vital it is for every child to have a place in the school, which most of the schools are very overcrowded and missing places for many functions. I would like to add, the area is currently under consideration for rezoning, surrounded on all four sides by residential neighborhoods. The site is currently an eyesore to the community and the city of New York. Approving this rezoning will help beautify the city we all care for, while simultaneously providing necessary housing for many families, including affordable options for low-income residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Niederman.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Let me say, my name is Rabbi David Niederman. I'm the Executive Director of the United Jewish Organizations of Williamsburg and North Brooklyn. I want to thank you for the strong stand you take for housing, yes, which is very important. And I'm looking from two dimensions, which is the housing need and as well as the educational need for children. I want to thank you. I've been a participant with this wonderful organization, which is the City Planning Commission, for over 3 decades. Just want to thank you what the community and the commission has done over the past 3 decades. I have in front of me a analysis of the land use changes in South Williamsburg and Bed-Stuy, which from 1990 to present. We just worked with city planning on that. Let me tell you what it says. So, total units of housing growth, 1990 you had 24,000 units. Total units in 2020 was 39,000 units, which is a growth of 15,000 units in 3 decades. And let's talk of the population growth. Population growth in 1990 was 82,751. Again, we are talking Williamsburg and Bed-Stuy. Population growth in 2020, population rate 2020 is 125,000 people, 51% into 42% in 3 years. So what does that translate to? That translates really of children that don't have a roof on top of their heads, and they live overcrowded and doubled up. They can't say, this is my bed where I sleep. You deal with children that do not have an equitable space where they can learn, so that they come home and they get the education that they deserve. You look at children who need recreation, and they don't have it enough. You look at kids that need resource rooms in order to develop on what they could be, which is our future. And therefore, I respectfully request to understand the need to analyze. You have shown us what could be done over 30 years. Let's see what could be done now over the next few years to accommodate so many families that needs affordable housing. And let me finish with this point. We talk about the total number of units. It's not, I'm finishing with this. It's not only the percentage of affordable housing. Let us understand that the additional housing that is being built is housing for families that the local communities can afford. Not talking the high end of market rate, but internally in Bed-Stuy and Williamsburg that can use, and that is the lower end of market rate. So by doing that, you afford a families and children first, what they really desire. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it to Commissioner Goodrich.
Thank you so much for your testimony. So I have a question about that. I saw that a significant portion of the affordable housing would be above 80%, and I think it was $2,400 for a studio. Is that actually something that this community can afford?
Let me say, I don't know the exact numbers. I just want to say that I live in Williamsburg and have worked there for more than 3 decades. And I've seen the north side and I've seen in Greenpoint what has happened. And I can tell you on these units that we were talking about, that we were a part, actively working with city planning on the rezoning, is half of the price that is just blocks away. So what I'm saying is I don't know the exact numbers but I can say that the project is a project not marketing for outside need, but local consumption that the local residents can afford, and maybe not everybody, and of course not everybody, but therefore you have the mix. You have the low-income affordables, and you have the market rate, the low end of market rate. So therefore, that I believe is crucial. I can tell you, again, working on this for more than 3 decades, that this system forms Williamsburg, when years ago was a place that nobody wants to live, is now a place that people say, I live in Williamsburg. And is proud of that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Mr. Wells, Joel Wells.
Good afternoon. My name is Joel Wells. I'm the Executive Director of Central United Theological Academy, which is probably has the biggest trade size of all four schools in this rezoning. I'm here to urge the Commission to approve this rezoning. Our students desperately need the space, both growing and for them to have a really sound education. Right now, we don't have the space for them for anything extra curriculum, performing arts, anything extra that should really get them have a sound education. Besides extra school seats, this rezoning will actually improve the education of the existing children. I just also want to mention, we don't expect the transportation buses to increase. Most, I would say 70% of children live within 10 minutes walking distance of this location. And most of the kids in the higher grades actually walk to school. So we don't expect to really increase any buses. There also was one comment from community board about having parking for the buses, and we actually took care of that recommendation. We rented a lot to park the buses. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Mr. Joel Berkowitz.
Hi, and good afternoon, honored board. I'm a parent of my kids learn in Central UTA. I'm born and raised in this community, and I strongly recommend that you should approve this rezoning to accommodate my kids, to be able to go to school safely. And in the community, it's a walking distance from my house. I remember when I was a young kid, I lived in this community since I was born. For me to walk to the school was a big, my mother would go say how you get to the school. Now, when we have this school near our houses, it will be very beneficial, avoiding transportation and being able for the kids to go to school safely. Additionally, I have some kids, some of my daughters appreciate art and other schooling, teaching ideas. The fact when the school will have more accommodations, they will be able to have more art classes and other kind of schooling, which will be grateful and helpful for everybody. Therefore, I recommend strongly that it's in the benefit of the community and the benefit of the people residing in this area that this rezoning should be approved and granted, and it will only make New York and Brooklyn and Williamsburg a better place to live for everyone. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Our last speaker is Rabbi Miyoshi Indid, and apologies if I mispronounced your name. Okay, they have departed. Okay, if there's anyone else registered to speak or seeking to speak, okay. If not, this hearing is, we have another speaker?
No. Before you close the hearing, I'll just note that for calendar numbers 35 and 36, the record will remain open through 5 p.m. on Monday, July 13th, to receive written comments on the DEIS.
Thank you. And with that, this hearing is... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's no other business before the commission, but I have some public information to share in addition. For those of you who are unable to or did not wish to testify, you can submit written testimony online through DCP's website or by mailing your comments to City Planning Commission, Calendar Information Office, 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, New York, 10271. The time is 1:18.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.